are you?
Sir?
It's typical.
Hey, Pat.
Derek, good
How are
to
you?
see you.
Yeah.
Hey, Patty.
Absolutely.
I owe you a fruitcake, and I keep forgetting it. I will get it to you. They're
Is that
still
your
good.
specialty,
They're,
fruitcakes?
they're still good. That's what it was.
Your specialty is fruitcakes?
It's Supreme,
Southern Supreme.
Southern Supreme. You have to remember now, nuts are fruit. There is no cake in this,
All right.
all right? Nuts are fruit, all right? It is, without a doubt, the best in the world. And you, sir, I will have you one too. I just have to remember it. My memory's not the shortest part of me,
All right,
but
it's coming.
it's close.
Okay, we'll look forward to it.
I did.
Folks, I have 7 p.m. on May the 11th, 2023. This is our normal Stokesdale Town Council meeting, and I'm calling it to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would, join me, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I can. You snuck up on me.
I know.
All right.
If you don't, I will. Mr. Jones will do our invocation.
Folks, if you would bow your heads. Dear Lord, we come before you this evening and give thanks for all our many blessings. We thank you for each individual in this town, and you know their needs, and we'd ask you to attend to them. We'd ask that you give this council the wisdom to make decisions on the behalf of the citizens of Stokesdale. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I would ask that you to review and adopt the agenda. I make a motion that we do approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like
Yes.
to move item number 14 after, excuse me, item number 11.
14 will become 11A.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we add to the agenda a closed session at the end of the normal meeting. It will follow citizens' comments number 16, closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11 for the purpose of consulting with our attorney and preserving the attorney-client privilege. Any other comments? Any objections? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landreth?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am also aye. I make a motion that we review and adopt the minutes from the March 31st, 2023 special called meeting.
We just need a motion to approve or deny them. That's an agenda item.
Ah,
I'll make a motion that we adopt the minutes from March 31st, 2023.
I'll
special call
second.
meeting.
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landreth?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I'm also aye. And our Stokesdale Fire Department, I believe Randy is with us this evening.
Good evening, folks. Randy Sutton, Stokesdale Fire Department. Very busy month for us in April. We ran 90 calls total. 49 of them were medical related, 7 were fire related, and 34 fall under other categories. So normally we've been in the 70 to 80 range. And is a very busy month for us. I would report to you that unfortunately one of our career firefighters had a serious stroke this past Saturday and is in the hospital, so I would ask that you keep the department and that gentleman in your prayers. Our reminder for folks this month deals with outside burning. Now that it's spring and folks are getting out and beginning to clear up some areas that have grown up during the winter, we tend to see more calls where people are burning stuff. It's okay to burn yard debris. It's not okay to put manufactured products in that We would ask you to please keep the size controllable. If you're gonna be burning it, try to stay with it so you can watch it. If you can put some water nearby for you to control it, that would be great. We ask that you keep some distance between it and other fire sources, particularly residences. We would ask that you pay close attention to the news media. They generally report when the air quality is low, and if there is a ban on burning, it generally gets on the news media fairly early each day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? Thank you. Do we have a report from the Sheriff's Department? Mr. Foy, do you have one?
You do too, it's in your
I
packet.
do I? Okay, I apologize, I will, here we go. Sheriff's Report. For the month of April, the Sheriff's Department responded to 245 calls for service in Stokesdale. That's a good number, resulting in 10 formal case reports. Of note, we are seeing an increase of car break-ins in area parks involving smashed windows, with offenders targeting purses, credit cards. While we had none in Stokesdale this past month, we were hit twice on back-to-back weekends at Triad Park, where many area residents frequent. We would like to remind everyone to bring only the bare essentials needed for you when visiting area parks and trails, to never leave valuables sitting in plain sight. We have seen a rise recently in social media extortion scams targeting residents throughout the county, in which victims are duped into sharing explicit photo online with strangers. Victims are then blackmailed by the suspect, who demands money in exchange for not distributing those photos to friends and family. Do I need to consult you, sir? Okay. I'm sorry. We would like to remind residents, especially teenagers, to not talk to strangers online and never elicit photos or personal information. Complete? I believe that is.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to call for a point of order.
Uh-oh. Yes, sir.
The citizen has brought a dog to this meeting. I think the
gosh.
dog constitutes a disturbance, or if this policy habit continues, could, and I object to its presence.
Oh, my gosh. Do I have any further discussion on this matter? I'll have to be honest with you, Mr. Jones.
Do we have a policy on either way on that?
I have no objection to the dog being in the house.
Well, if you won't make the call, then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask for a vote.
That's fine. That's fine. So, do we have any further objection to the dog being in the house?
I don't object to that dog being in the house, but just as a general rule of practice, a dog in a town council meeting, I'm not sure if that's appropriate.
All right.
Our problem's gonna be, we don't have a policy.
What would you suggest?
I don't particularly, I got a dog I'd like to bring, but I'm afraid that, we don't have a policy tonight. But, I'm pretty sure that's a good dog, but then what happens when somebody wants to bring a dog that's not?
Dog's doing what I want to be doing right now.
But we don't have a policy.
Well, for the sake of clarification, I don't object to the character of this dog, the dog's breed, or anything else, but the fact is, it's a dog. If we start down this path, next month we can have 3, then we can have barking, dog fights. This is nutty.
I think what we need to do is set a policy.
This council can set a policy right now by voting to remove this dog. And I might add, some people have allergies at times. Dogs do cause me problems, just depending on circumstances. This is a path I don't think the town needs to go down, unless the citizens contend it's an ADA service dog.
So is there a motion
I object to a comment. We're not gonna start an agenda item over this. My point of order is the dog constitutes a disturbance of a public meeting. Mr. Winfrey, can you have any comment here?
This dog has not yet constituted a disturbance of the meeting, I guess I would say, but, so the board could say if a dog appears, does create a disturbance, you'd have, be within your rights to have it removed then, but you could, as you pointed out, if you want to adopt a policy,
Are we gonna have a staff member to assess the character of each dog that comes to a public meeting and give it some sort of certification? I mean, somebody wants to bring their pet cat,
The only thing I'm saying is we don't have a policy for it. We should discuss and adopt a policy, which is not on the agenda tonight. And, that's what we should do, and maybe we need to cover cats and everything else, or animals, period. But we don't have a policy.
we don't have a policy that somebody can't bring a horse in here either, or any of a number of things. I mean,
So maybe we need one.
I mean, I agree with you, Tim. I mean, that dog's certainly not bothering anybody. Your point about allergies is well taken.
No, I know where you're coming from. I'm just saying we don't have a policy for it. And we should, we should cover it because, it has come up. And I've discussed this before with someone that I didn't think was such a good idea, but, like I say, we don't have a policy. So
Let's vote.
that's fine. Make whatever motion it is you want to make.
I make a motion that if the mayor approves the animal to be present at the meeting, that the animal may be present at the meeting.
I object to any motion or any, because we don't, it's not on the agenda. If the dog's not causing a disturbance, I say we move on. We don't have a
Well, it's
policy.
definitely not causing a
We
disturbance.
don't have a policy. We need to move on the agenda item.
Mr.
I think this
Winfrey,
is out of order.
I have a right to call for a point of order and get a vote on this.
point of order does not need to be an agenda item, so that's been raised, by one of the members, so the council needs to deal with it in some fashion.
So does my motion stand?
Is there
would
any
need a
response to
second.
his point of order, I would say, so I would say it's responsive to his motion.
Repeat your motion, please.
My motion is, as long as the mayor does not object to the animal being present at the council meeting, that the animal may be present. Should the mayor object to the animal being present, the animal must be removed.
Well, here I go again. I'm going to second your motion, even though I'm going to vote no, because I don't think it should be up to the mayor whether the dog stays or goes. We want to take a vote on it, that's fine, but
Somebody's
I'm
gonna
not
have,
going, I don't think, I'm not going to vote to delegate. I guess that would be the easy way out, though.
somebody's gonna have to make that decision. But anyway,
Well, a vote of council will make that decision.
Well,
All right.
let's just amend your motion to take a vote of council for the dog to stay.
say that again, Mr. Rigsby.
So just amend your motion to allow the dog to stay as long as it does not create a disturbance.
Okay,
I'll accept that.
this is great, guys, but are we gonna spend the staff time, attorney time, council time, every time somebody brings a dog to a meeting here?
No,
Th-
we're
th-
going,
our-
I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm interrupting you.
Sometimes I think Stokesdale is Mayberry, and this proves it right here.
No, what we're gonna do is next meeting, we'll have it on the agenda to make a policy, set a policy.
And Mayor, if I may ask, do you have any particular training in with veterinarian assessments or dogs or what have you? Are you speaking to this from a layman's perspective? I'm just asking.
No, I'm a lifelong dog lover.
Okay.
I love dogs.
I like
too.
cats too. I've been known to like horses.
So I have a
I'm just
question.
putting it on the mayor because I'm not gonna always be here. I think the mayor should be able to make that call.
I have a question for the citizen. Mr. Nadell, did you send this in an email?
I actually checked with Robbie before I came, and my concern was I violating any policy? According to Robbie, there's absolutely nothing on the books that says it can't play it.
So you did your due diligence.
Knowing that the dog is well behaved, sleeping now, he probably causes a lot less grief than some of the stuff that goes on in meetings. And he probably wastes a lot less time.
I would agree.
Spend 15 minutes trying to figure out what the dog is doing. I think that, and Robbie and I had this discussion, if an animal was brought to a meeting and it's a disruption, then the council has every right to remove, just like any person would come here and cause a disruption. You have the right to have a removed from the meeting. He's sitting there snoring away, and you don't hear him snoring, he's asleep. I brought him here for a reason, this is it, because I wanted to see, and remember, there's an election coming up, and there's a lot of animal lovers. You guys are messing with, this reminds me of North 134th Street. You're gonna vote against Santa Claus. Do what you want. I understand Mr. Jones's allergy issues, but you know what? I'm not sure if he's allergic to the pollen. What does he do when there's pollen outside? Does he lock himself in a bubble for 2 months? I mean, we all have allergies. If somebody was sitting next to me and said, it's like pollen, wait, why? Just leave.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move forward. Does somebody second that?
Enough said. I've got a motion, I've got a second.
What's the motion?
The motion is the mayor will make the
No, you
decision.
withdrew that.
No.
I withdrew the amended motion. Mr. Rigsby, help me.
The minute motion is for the dog that's present in the room to stay as long as he does not cause a disturbance for tonight.
And Mr. Landreth, you second that?
If nobody else wants to second it, of course, I'm gonna second any motion that comes to the floor.
All right. Mr. Rigsby, your vote?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
No.
Mr. Landreth?
I'm not gonna vote to remove him because we don't have a policy, so, I guess.
Mr. Jones?
I'm nay.
I am aye. The dog gets to stay. Now we go to administrative reports. Ms. Martin?
This month, we had 5 meters installed. 76 meters are currently still in stock. Have 17 applications for transfers of service. We had 25 meter applications still on hold for builders. We processed 11 work orders, 42 811 calls, 752 water bills were mailed out. We have ordered meters, however, we're waiting on the nodes. And if council desires, we can start replacing the manual read meters in those dangerous locations to auto read meters, if you'd like to start that process again.
What does it require from us to do that?
Appropriating the money in the budget.
I got you. Okay.
Town staff has executed our contract with Hunter Enterprises for the maintenance of soccer fields. We have executed the contract with Excellence Lawn Care for the maintenance of town hall and the park property. Town staff has, we've had several issues this month with unauthorized personnel obtaining water from fire hydrants. We have dealt with that and having them comply with bulk water permits. Town staff has worked alongside A&D Enterprises to keep water customers up to date and informed during this valve blow-off program. Town staff has worked with North Carolina State Office of the Budget Management to secure the $50,000 small town development grant. Town staff has prepared meeting summaries for the meeting with Guilford County regarding the $3.1 million ARP grant. Town staff has discussed with Guilford County Planning and Development regarding the specifics of the basketball, pickleball courts for the town park project. Town staff has met with representatives from Revise, which is our website designer, and discussed possible upgrades and formats to change the town's website. Town staff has prepared a proclamation at the request of the mayor recognizing Oak Level Baptist Church Academy Youth Choir. That was presented to Pastor Xavier Kelly. Town staff has worked with Kennerly Engineering to get applications for approval for the engineering plans and specifications for water supply to NCDEQ and NCDOT. Once those applications have been approved, Kennerly Engineering has been authorized to conduct a round of RFPs for qualified vendors for the construction of the water line extensions from the By-Right to the Cornelius Court down Ellisboro Road. Town staff has submitted signed purchase orders and executive service agreement for Backyard Paradise for the installation of the playground equipment at the town park. Town staff is working to secure a quote for the repair of the water fountain located at the concession stand at the town park. Town staff has worked with Pro-Track Septic and Excavation to have control panel for the septic tank lift station at Town Hall replaced. Town staff has replaced a broken irrigation control valve cover outside the Town Hall council chambers. Town staff has submitted a signed renewal application to the North Carolina League of Municipalities for renewal of the dental, vision, and short-term disability for full-time employees for the year 23-24. Town staff has submitted a request for statements of qualification and interest in providing the water system consulting and engineering services for the town's water distribution system to several engineering firms. Town staff has submitted resolution number Resolution 2023-05. That's a resolution that you all adopted opposing the de-annexation of certain properties for the town of Summerfield. That was executed. It was sent to Summerfield town clerk as well as the state legislature. Special thank you to T and Nancy Stevenson for filling all the doggy pots at the town park with plastic bags. Town staff is currently reviewing minutes from 2019 to the present to ensure that all text amendments are recorded to be submitted for an update to the town's development ordinance. Town staff has reviewed and updated the schedule of fees and budget method in preparation for this year's annual budget. Researched and prepared the capital project ordinance considered tonight. Coordinated rezoning items for both the planning board and town council meeting, and received a call this afternoon from NCDOT, and we should see speed limit signs within 2 weeks.
Wow. Tell you what,
Y'all ain't doing much, are you?
that's impressive. Thank you all very much.
We have our inspector here, our planning board. Anything to report? Nah? Yes? No? Feel free.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So,
Mr. Schneider, I'm very sorry, but can you introduce yourself with Guilford County
I
Planning?
apologize.
Yeah.
I
Not the
am
inspector.
Justin Snyder. I'm a senior planner with Guilford County.
Senior planner, I'm
the
sorry.
Representative for Stokesdale. So I wanted to discuss the update to the comprehensive plan that the county is currently undertaking. We are doing an update to our comprehensive plan, and as part of that process, we have attempted to distribute basically a public input survey. And in order to get the word out, we're trying to speak before or during each meeting, each public meeting, so that people are aware that there is a survey. It can be accessed via the Guilford County Comprehensive Plan website. Robbie also has it on the screen. There's a QR code that you can take to your cell phone and basically open up your camera and just hover over that QR code, and it'll give you a link. And then it'll take you to the comprehensive plan webpage, and then there'll be a button that says take the survey. The survey takes about maybe 10 to 15 minutes, but it helps inform the process. And we really want as much county-wide citizen involvement and transparency as we can in this process, because we want it to be a success for everybody in every part of the county. So if you have a few minutes, please take that survey, pass it to your friends, family, colleagues at work, anybody that you know of who lives, works, plays, simply loves Guilford County and wants to help shape the future of this comprehensive plan. I will also mention that there is going to be a public workshop. Tentatively, it's scheduled for August 22nd. We're looking at the 421 corridor somewhere along there near Pleasant Garden for this next public workshop. It is completely open to the public. You're more than welcome to attend if you want to find out more about the comprehensive plan process. Our consultants will be available to answer questions. The staff will be there also to answer any questions that you might have about the process, solicit any public input that you can provide. We are also available by email at complan, COMPPLAN, at guilfordcountync.gov. And that is monitored by staff. It's myself and Kay Grayfield, the Deputy Director. And we are very responsive. We would love any feedback that you have on the plan, no matter what the subject of it might be, whether it be environment, zoning, growth, management, whatever it be. Please feel free to send us an email for any sort of feedback. And finally, I have given a sign-up sheet to Ms. Dale there. If you would like to be added to a contact list for general county updates, including updates to the comprehensive plan, feel free to give Dale or Robbie your name and email address, and they will send that along to us, and we will add you to our list. And that's all I've got for you.
Forgive me for the improper introduction, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin.
Do we have anything from you, Mr. Foy? Events Committee?
Not really, just that the parade, go ahead and get it on the calendar. I believe it's always the second Saturday in December. That'd be the 9th this year. Also, not a town event per se, but the PTO is having their annual bike parade out here at the park tomorrow evening. And our own very Robbie Wagner is gonna be one of the judges.
Oh, my goodness.
Miss Patty is too? All right.
Very good, very good.
And Randy,
Not Randy, but somebody from the fire department.
the fire department, my goodness, who else? T? Oh,
Oh, wow.
wonderful,
Great.
yes. Outstanding. So, that's all I have.
Mr. Rigsby or Mr. Landreth, do we have anything on property committee?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have we ever-
We got the, the sewer controls fixed. Big thanks to Tim. He got the initial contact for that, and plus he come up here and cut on and off the pump for I don't know how many months, and give us the initial contact. And then Robbie called and got us an estimate. We saved about $1,000 from what we approved.
Boy,
It's done.
Fantastic.
We're about floating away.
I'm not on the property committee. I've got one thing that's somewhat related. You mind if I go ahead, Mr. Mayor?
I do not, please.
I think it's been 3 or 4 months ago, council approved for Eagle Scout project from Mr. James Reed
Yes,
to do the fire pit, the flag retirement area in front
Yes.
of Town Hall. Unfortunately, his project didn't get passed by a scout master due to the pouring of concrete, and that I don't guess the boys wouldn't be doing enough work. So he has come back and proposed that they do pavers, paved with pavers walkway instead of concrete. I think it'll look better. The pavers will come, I think he said, from Pine Hall and match the town hall. Does anybody have an objection to that?
I don't, I agree with you. I think it'll probably even look better.
All right, well, I told Mr. Reed I'd run it by the guys, and
Mr. Ford, do you think it needs a vote of council?
Tim, I don't know these days, man.
Well, I don't either, Dan.
I think we can approve the change by just no objection.
Yeah.
What's happened with our mirror in the restroom that we got vandalized? Have we ever been able to fix that?
We need 5 strong backs that will help.
That mirror's not that big.
No, it's just a matter of, the bracket is a little bit different. I haven't went down there to actually look at it. I guess it's just a matter of putting in some new screws to match the new bracket.
Okay, all right. All right, so
I
we
mean,
haven't made any headway on it.
Yeah, but like I say, 2 people could get it done, one to hold it, one to do it, so anytime y'all want to do it.
Okay,
More
gotcha.
than welcome.
All right. Mr. Stevenson, do you have anything on town park improvement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. T. Stevenson, Chairman of the Park Improvement Committee. Again, just bring everybody up to date with our activity since the last town council meeting. We continue to meet on a weekly basis on Thursday afternoons at 5:15 here in this space. These are public meetings. They are open. Anyone that would like to attend is certainly welcome to do so. As Dale mentioned previously, we have entered into a contract with Backyard Paradise for completion of the playground equipment as voted and approved on at last town council meeting. Again, pursuant to a vote of council on April the 20th, we entered into a contract with Fleming Contracting to perform a boundary survey map of the property located at 7901 Athens Road. That, again, is the new addition to the town property that was acquired, about a year and a half or 2 years ago. With the understanding that once this survey is completed and recorded, we will proceed with pursuing a combination deed of that parcel with the existing town park properties. Derek Foy and I traveled to Camp Kanata in Wake Forest, North Carolina, a couple of weeks ago for the purpose of inspecting a basketball court that was installed by the contractor that we're talking to and have entertained bids from. We wanted to look at see how the court was standing up. This particular court is about 13 years old. It is the sport court or power court material. And Mr. Wagner there has a picture of the court itself. Again, this was installed by Carolina Sport Court approximately 13 years ago. And so as you can see there from those pictures, it is still very flat, very usable, and has really held up very, very well. This particular product carries a 15-year manufacturer's warranty in addition to that. On our way back, we stopped at Burnmill Park in Summerfield and inspected the pickleball courts there. Burnmill had installed new pickleball courts about a year ago. And bear in mind, again, this particular Sunday morning was dreary, overcast, raining. There were 3 or 4 couples there playing pickleball, and we were advised that these particular courts were usually had a waiting line, that they were full most of the time except for the weather conditions there today. But I did want to point out to you that this particular court, and again, they're only a year old, these are painted adhesive surface over concrete. And as you can see there, it's already begun to crack with just the 1 year of age on it. Just bear in mind the Power Game Plus and Sport Game pickleball surfaces are proposed by the Carolina Sport Court, and they would provide a more durable surface than painted coatings over either concrete or asphalt. By the way, in January of this year, we found that USA Pickleball, the national governing body for the sport of pickleball, announced a 3-year partnership with sports surface company Sport Court. The agreement went into effect January 1st and designates Sport Court as an official supplier and the official modular tile surface partner of USA Pickleball. And just a quote from the president there, it said, "With the demand of pickleball facilities higher than ever, we are thrilled to partner with the sports industry leader like Sport Court to help meet the ever-growing need." This is a quote from Stu Upson, and again, he is the USA Pickleball CEO. He goes on to say that this partnership will be critical in helping local communities, entrepreneurs, and individuals build courts of the highest quality. And we are excited for Sport Court's commitment to deliver safe, custom-designed pickleball courts to further expand our sport across the country, end quote. In addition to our activities with regard to the pickleball and basketball courts, we did request a proposal from Yates Construction for repair and erosion control on the southwest drainage area adjacent to the walking path around Town Park. That said, the committee has prepared a recommendation, and I believe Town Council has this in your packets that you've got in front of you with regard to both the basketball and pickleball court construction and the construction to be performed by Yates Construction. And these will be, I believe, addressed in items 12 and 13 on the agenda.
Let me ask one question. Are we gonna put in one pickleball court or two?
Two.
Two, okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, T.
You stole my thunder for the agenda item later. That was perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, moving right along. Ms. Thacker, financials? Have you recovered from the tax season?
I'm getting there.
Is that a new vehicle I saw you in today, or? Was that a new vehicle I saw you in today?
That's my husband's thing.
Oh, okay.
I've been asked that several times today. Okay.
Taxes have been good to me. Taxes have been good to me.
That's my husband's car, vehicle. All right, so we will start with the general fund, and these numbers are for 4/30/2023. In the, the ARP account, our balance was $723,965. The Bank of Oak Ridge Money Market, $23,480.97. Bank of Oak Ridge CDARS, $2,583,867.32. Infidelity checking, $316,297.17. Petty cash is $150. The total investment earnings, which is our interest earned this fiscal year to date for general fund, and I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention because it makes me happy. $23,822 is our investment earnings, which is interest earned, of which $7,606 is from April alone from the CDARS. I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. The accounts receivable, Gary, our operator and responsible charge, for salary and FICA due from water enterprise account is $530.35. The shared overhead expense, August, that's supposed to say April, good Lord. April reimbursement is $11,156.47. The total this fiscal year to date, shared overhead expense is $119,494. Sales tax refund due to general fund year to date is $539.69. The total assets for the general fund is $3,659,986.97. The state retirement for the month of April is $915.55. The total year-to-date this fiscal year, and this is the town of Stokesdale contribution at 12.10%, is $8,098.36. The water enterprise account for the Bank of Oak Ridge, our total CDARS are $505,683.02. Our capital reserve fund is $205,288.32. Fidelity Bank checking, $672,450.72. Fidelity Bank savings is $45,060.03. The North Carolina Capital Management Trust Fund is $538,475.63. The total investment earnings, again, is our interest earned for this fiscal year to date for the water enterprise account is $21,260, of which $3,134 is for the month of April, and that's a combination of the CDARS and the North Carolina Capital Management Trust Fund. Interest rates are great. We're getting good interest right now.
We're paying for it.
Yeah, you ain't kidding, especially if good credit. I won't go on that rant right now. Accounts receivable for water sales that includes active and inactive are $29,458.78. That also includes April billing. The accounts receivable active 90-plus days, we have one account that is past due, and it's my understanding that was disconnected, and that was for $25.95. Accounts receivable for inactive 90-plus days due is 24 accounts that total $6,114.63. The total accounts receivable this fiscal year to date for the water enterprise account is $270. Our total assets for the water enterprise account is $1,996,712.45. Again, just to reiterate, the accounts payable from the water from the water enterprise account to the general fund for the shared overhead expense for the month of April is $11,156.47. Also payroll, again, due to general fund for our ORC is $530.35. Our total accounts payable is $11,686.82. And I just have a couple of additional notes. The town of Stokesdale has received the Small Town Development Grant in the amount of $50,000. I did submit our SLFRF, the ARPA annual report that was due by April the 30th. That has been submitted and accepted, and I have confirmation for that. We have been attending budget workshops since March and are in the process of finalizing the fiscal year 24 budget and the budget message. And that's all that I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Kim.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll open the floor for citizens' comments. Anyone? I have a couple here. Maria Adams? Chris, I believe we're going to let you speak at the agenda item. Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Maria Adams, and I live in Summerfield. Thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening. Every resident in District 3, which includes Stokesdale, has been disenfranchised by the Guilford County Board of Education.
Amen.
So allow me to explain. In November of 2022, Mr. Pat Tillman, who was our Board of Education District 3 representative, vacated his school board seat when he was elected to the county commissioner seat. Because Mr. Tillman is a Republican, the school board seat is to be filled by another Republican nominated by the Guilford County Republican Party. That legal nominee is Mr. Michael Logan. Mr. Logan is a 26-year teacher with Guilford County Schools. He has an impeccable record with GCS and was named Teacher of the Month in September 2022 by Carolina Teachers Alliance. During his career as an effective and caring teacher, he has touched the lives of over 2,500 students and their families through his CTE classes. Mr. Logan has fostered long-term relationships with many teachers, principals, and administrators throughout Guilford County, which gives him insight on how he can best serve his fellow educators. Mr. Logan and his wife Pam raised 2 children who attended Guilford County schools, and therefore he believes in strong parental involvement. Mr. Logan's unique perspective and experience as a 26-year GCS teacher is invaluable to the Board of Education. Mr. Logan is also a lifetime Republican who has selflessly served in multiple roles with the Guilford County Republican Party. He has worked tirelessly to get conservative candidates, including Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, elected to office. Mr. Logan has held several leadership roles within the Guilford County GOP, including Chair of District 3 and President of the Men's Republican Club. Through his work with the Republican Party, he has interacted with thousands of voters in the district and in Stokesdale, and garnered loyal support from residents in Summerfield, Oak Ridge, Stokesdale, and Greensboro. Now, according to law, the seat vacated by Mr. Tillman was to be filled by the Guilford County Republican Party Executive Committee's nominee. The Executive Committee is comprised of the Executive Board, district chairs, and precinct chairs who are elected by party delegates. Delegates who have met certain party criteria are registered Republican voters, like myself. Therefore, by proxy of the Executive Committee, Mr. Logan was elected by voters to represent District 3 on the school board. Once Mr. Logan's nomination was submitted to the Guilford County School Superintendent, it is the duty of the Board of Education to swear him in and have him seated as the District 3 representative. However, instead of following the law as it was intended, the Democrat-led board was derelict in their duty and refused to seat Mr. Logan. The Democrat-led board continued to be derelict in their duty of seating Mr. Logan for an additional 3 months, leaving every citizen in District 3, including Stokesdale, without representation. At this point, residents in the district, as well as the Republican Party, had standing, or may have had standing, to sue the Board of Education for dereliction of duty and disenfranchising District 3 residents. But instead of taking this very expensive and drawn-out legal battle, the Republican Party looked to the North Carolina General Assembly to clear up language in the law. After the NCGA passed a new law to clear up the language in the previous law, the Republican Party, as well as Michael Logan, was led to believe he would be sworn in at the April 4th Board of Education meeting. It was inferred by the superintendent, Dr. Oakley, and the Board of Education that Mr. Logan would be seated when he and the Republican board members were told that a judge would be on site to commence the swearing in. In good faith and a belief that this board would finally do the right thing, Mr. Logan and his room full of supporters attended the April 4th board meeting. Among those guests and supporters were Mr. Logan's wife and father. Mr. Logan's father, who is an elderly man, traveled a 3-hour round trip to witness and stand by his son. Mr. Logan's father brought the family Bible, which was encased in a wooden box for Mr. Logan to take his oath of office. But instead of doing the right thing and following the law as it was intended, the Democrat-led board concocted a plan to thwart the law, deny Mr. Logan his seat for a 5th time, and instead installed a person who ultimately betrayed Mr. Logan and the Republican Party. That person is Mr. Bill Goebel. The day after the board meeting, I reached out to Mr. Goebel to give him a chance to explain his side of the story, and I'm almost done. Mr. Goebel explained to me that the Democrats had no intention of ever seating Mr. Logan, regardless of what the law says. He shared with me that he attended a lunch meeting at the offices of Jill Wilson's firm. Jill Wilson, by the way, is legal counsel for the Board of Education. And that Ms. Wilson showed him the PowerPoint presentation that she presented the night of the board meeting. The presentation that explained how they were going to deny Mr. Logan and instead seat Mr. Goebel. That means Mr. Goebel was privy to information prior to other board members, including the Republican board members, and prior to the public at large. Mr. Goebel further confirmed in a text message that the Guilford County Board of Education Chair, Dina Hayes Green, was also in attendance at the meeting with him and Jill Wilson. Mr. Goebel shared much of this information with the Rhino Times and other news outlets. Although Mr. Goebel was nominated by the Democrats and sworn in by a judge, he is not the legal nominee of the Guilford County Republican Party, nor was he elected by voters. Since then, Mr. Goebel has been censored by the Guilford County Republican Party and for disloyalty and circumventing the proper avenues for fulfilling a vacancy on the Guilford County Board of Education. And he's also banned from attending any events sponsored by the Guilford County Republican Party and the Guilford County GOP headquarters. Are there any questions?
Did anybody ever ask Mr. Goebel to resign so you could, because he could resign? They used that loophole, what was it, 30 days or something, that they didn't act or something. I read about it.
Yeah, they did.
And,
Yes, sir.
They actually asked him to resign and let him,
Well,
then they could have took the spot. But
yes.
he wouldn't do it.
Yes, sir. Members of our local Republican Party asked Mr. Goebel to resign, as well as legislators and other Republican leaders, elected officials have asked Mr. Goebel to resign, but he refuses to do so.
Okay, I just wondered if they did.
I have a comment and a question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
From what you just said and from what I've read in the paper, it does sound like, some things are awry here, and Mr. Logan probably should be in that seat. I did watch that meeting on the Guilford County Schools YouTube, and one thing I noticed, obviously their attorney had done some work to find these loopholes, whether they're legal loopholes or not legal loopholes. That's not really for me to decide. But one observation that I had, that the majority of that board seemed to be very well informed of what was going to happen there, and almost in violation of an open meetings law. That's the way I personally, as one individual, inferred that. It also appeared that 2 of the board members had no idea that this was coming. So that was just an observation. I pretty much agree with everything that you said, and I think you did a good job of summarizing the fortunate situation our citizens in Stokesdale, which are all in District 3, now face.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
What's the next step? Is anything happening or?
Yes, sir. John Hardister, Representative Hardister, who has been working very closely with Chairman Meadows and the Executive Board, have been working on a resolution. And if I could, may I quote something that Mr. Hardister wrote?
Please.
Short?
Okay, thank you. This was reported in the Rhino Times. Hardister was asked if Goble's appointment to fill the District 3 Guilford County School Board seat on April 4th meant the issue was settled. To that, Hardister responded, "It's not over, it's certainly not over. Local governments, such as the school boards, are political subdivisions of the state, and the state has tremendous power over them," he continued. "In my view, the school board has defied the law twice now. Our discussions at the state level are about what can we do to rectify that," saying he was in discussions with leaders of both the State House and the Senate to determine the best way to move forward. Hardister added, "We're strongly considering taking additional action, and there could be legislation introduced shortly." That was his quote from the Rhino Times.
All right, thank you.
It's,
Thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so
Guilford
much.
County Schools has become massive. I remember
Sorry?
Guilford County Schools has become massive. I remember growing up, the school systems were somewhat divided around here. I'm wondering if it's become almost too big to become effective. So, politics getting in the way with education. I mean, this is crazy. Thank you for being here, Maria.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you again.
What we need to do is split the school system back up like it used to be.
Yep.
Shouldn't have never went together.
Okay, we've got a public hearing. It's a rezoning case, number 2303, PLBD 00041, 7884 ZZ Eversfield Road, Stokesdale. This property is located on the east of Eversfield Road, that's State Road 2032, approximately 615 feet south of Lambert Lake intersection on Guilford County tax parcel number 150412. This is a request to rezone the subject property, which contains 22.65 acres, from AG Agricultural to RS 30, single-family residential. The planning board will make a recommendation to the Stokesdale Town Council, which will have the final authority to approve or deny the request. The applicants, upon any major development of the property, intend to and/or required to connect to Stokesdale water system. Justin, do you have anything on this, or? Okay, please do.
That's why he's here, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for
I
that
don't
staff
know why I'm
report. No, I'm just kidding. So, as the mayor said, this is a request to rezone 7884 ZZ Eversfield Road from agricultural to RS 30, which is single-family residential. The planning board did make a recommendation to approve the request unanimously. And just please keep in mind that this request is for any and all uses permitted in the RS 30 zoning district. This is not a request or consideration to develop or subdivide the property at this time. So with that said, the RS 30 single-family district is primarily intended to accommodate moderate-density single-family detached dwellings and lots in areas without access to public water and wastewater services. However, Stokesdale's policy is that RS 30 shall connect to the water system, so keep that in mind. The overall gross density in the RS 30 areas will be typically about 1.3 units per acre or less by the time you include any sort of BMP and your septic areas and your roads and other improvements. So the general character of this area, this parcel is in a primarily rural residential area with a mixture of agricultural and low-density single-family residential uses. The property itself is vacant, partially wooded with some small outbuildings on the site. Surrounding land uses to the north is agricultural as well as conditional zone RS 40 single-family residential property. To the south is agricultural and RS 30 single-family residential property. To the east is RS 40 single-family residential. To the west is RS 30 and conditional zoning planned development residential, which is a low and medium density residential use. There are no designated historic landmarks on or adjacent to the subject property. There are also no known cemeteries located on the property. This will be served by Stokesdale Fire. It's approximately 2.2 miles from the nearest fire station. It would have private septic and Stokesdale water. According to DOT, Eversfield Road is a local residential street. Property would be subject to North Carolina Department of Transportation's driveway permit requirements upon any development of the property. Additionally, a traffic impact study could be required based on the overall size of the subdivision, since there are 300-plus homes that already exist near this subdivision, or near this location of this property. DOT does note that this property does not appear to be impacted by the proposed US 158 traffic improvement project. It's located in NCDOT STIP project R2577C. The DOT's annual average daily traffic figures taken in 2021 was measured to be approximately 2,100 for Eversfield Road. Per the school system, any impacts to the school system would be minor. Even upon development of this property. The topography is gently to moderately sloping. There's no regulated floodplain and no mapped wetlands on this property. However, there are 2 mapped streams on this property, and this property is not located in a designated water supply watershed. And per the Stokesdale Land Use Plan from 2007, the recommendation is for residential, with residential development making up approximately 12% of the land area. The majority of this would be low-density, single-family residential, with the exception of the Countryside Village Retirement Community located along US 158. And then, it goes on to say where some of the other development is, but it's somewhat immaterial here. The request, consistency statement, the requested action would be consistent with the recommendation of the Stokesdale Future Land Use Plan. Thus, the action, if approved, would not require an amendment to that land use plan. Staff is recommending approval of the request. We feel this proposed rezoning action is consistent with the recommendation of the future land use plan for residential, and it would be reasonable and in the public interest because it is adjacent to similarly zoned residential uses in this area, and it would provide low-density housing opportunities for citizens, and it's in an area served by Stokesdale Municipal Water. Thank you very much.
Justin, thank you for the well-written report and a very good explanation. Just for the town's records, on page 1, about halfway down, it says RS40. If you could just correct that and send it to Robbie, and we get it in Dale, and we'll get it filed away.
I do have it correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder,
Sir?
I'm very familiar with this territory. What do you mean when you say there are 2 map streams on the property?
So map streams show up on the, basically the county's topographic maps. Either they've been walked and identified, or they're identified from those maps that there are either, they could be ephemeral streams where they're not necessarily always having water running through them. They might look like drainage features, but in fact they are map streams.
Well, I don't see this as a big deal one way or the other, but there are no streams on that property.
Yeah, that's that's our watershed department, so.
I used to farm it. There are no streams on that property.
That'll make it easier to develop.
Any other questions? Chris, I believe you want to speak on this? Yes, sir. Please, if you would, step to the podium, identify yourself.
Chris Rohr, Land Solutions Land Surveying, 1616 NC Highway 68 North, Oak Ridge. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and staff for everything you do for Stokesdale. As Mr. Snyder said, you have before you tonight a request to rezone approximately 22.6 acres from the AG to the RS30 district. This request is consistent with the current land use plan. The plan dedicates this area as residential and is consistent with other properties in the area. Our community outreach consisted of sending out a letter to adjoining property owners, inviting them to an open house here at Town Hall, which we did have, but only about 3 or 4 citizens showed up with basically just some general questions, not anything in opposition. Again, planning staff and the planning board has recommended this request for approval. Because of that, we feel that this request is reasonable based on the town's current land use plan and objectives and its consistency with other properties in the area. and would appreciate your support. I'll be available for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Any questions? Chris, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in favor, or anyone would like to object at this point? We should hear those in favor first, Mr. I said that first. Anyone in favor? Anyone that objects to this? Right now, the matter rests with council. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve rezoning case 23-03 PLBD -00041 7884 ZZ Eversfield Road from agricultural to RS30.
Mr. Rigsby, would you accept an amendment stating in your motion that the reason for approval was that it's consistent with the recommendation of the future land use plan and staff approval?
I will.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Oh, Mr. Foy seconds. Any discussion? Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir. I was involved in the property in the sense that I was related to the seller's estate. I was an heir in a minor way. I was not the executor. I do not know the buyer, and I have nothing to do with this other than, some familiarity with the property from many years past. But I spoke with Mr. Winfrey before this meeting, and he advised me it was okay for me to go ahead and vote, but suggested I disclose to the public and the board my connection there. So there it is. Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landreth? Aye. Mr. Jones? Aye. And I am also aye. Yes, sir. Thank you, Chris. Discussion regarding the closed sessions continued from April 13th. Excuse me. Discussion regarding the recording of closed sessions. This is continued from April 13th. And our good attorney has given us some guidelines for this, options on how this might be accomplished. My recollection is if we leave it the way it is, we've kind of left ourselves open. If we make a policy on it, we probably don't leave ourselves quite so open.
Open for what?
Litigation, refresh my memory if you would, Mr. Winfrey, but if we allow this to happen and any of this information should get out, intentional or unintentional, it leaves us open to some, again, litigation that we probably don't want to welcome.
Well, there are certain things, as we discussed last time, your meetings in general are open. In other words, the state law says public business is to be conducted in the sunshine, so to speak. However, there are certain things that do not need to be disclosed, and there are other things that must not be disclosed, and particular personnel matters, for example, may not be disclosed by the town council. Those may be discussed in closed session. Other items, like, for example, criminal charges involving juveniles, that might be something you discuss in closed session that the law does not allow you to disclose to the public. Consequently, that is why, as I understand it, most jurisdictions do not allow recording of closed sessions at all, because if those recordings are then floating out there, then that information could be disclosed. And the disclosure of that information would expose the town to potential liability for having done so. So that's the that's the genesis. I think Ms. Martin has conducted a survey of other towns, and some of the members may have also, and I think that's attached to what was in your packet this evening. She can kind of describe her methodology for that, but I think she's looked at 15 or 20 different towns and see how they treat this issue.
Mr. Winfrey,
Yes.
what do you advise? As an attorney, as our attorney, what do you advise us to do?
Well, if Ms. Martin or the clerk would like to have a recording to help her prepare the minutes of the meeting, of the closed session, I would think it would be, the most prudent course would be to allow that recording to be done, and then once the minutes are approved for that closed session, to have those minutes destroyed, that recording destroyed.
So that's option 3.
Yes.
So, Mr. Winfrey, it's not against the North Carolina state law to record a closed session, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it against North Carolina state law for a board member to record a closed session?
There's no statute that says that you cannot do that.
There is no statute?
There is no statute that says, the case law says that a town, however, may adopt a policy regarding that, but you're not required to adopt such a policy. So in other words, you could leave it the way it is now, and anyone is free to record whatever they want to record, and there's no requirement that those recordings be deleted.
So just a one-word answer to Tim's question.
Okay.
Is there a state law prohibiting a council member from recording a closed session meeting?
No.
Okay.
So we really can't vote to keep a council member from recording. That would be improper.
No, if you adopt a policy, so this goes back to what came up before with the dog. If you adopt a policy that says this is what we're going to do with the recording of closed sessions, then you can enforce that policy. And that enforcement, it's a fascinating question on how you enforce it. As we heard earlier, if someone is disrupting the meeting or impeding the meeting, that could ultimately allow, if someone insisted on recording it, then they could be excused from the meeting if they wanted to record it in violation of policy.
Mr. Winfrey, it has been my habit to record closed sessions from time to time as a supplement to my notes for my own personal use. I plan to continue to do so if this policy is passed by this board. If you tell me it's illegal for me to do so, I would like to ultimately have the statute or the case law on that.
Okay.
I don't think you're saying it's illegal for them to. It'd just be our policy if.
Yeah, that's what I wanted the one-word answer.
What would we do, get the mayor to decide like he was gonna do on the dog?
Don't put too much on the mayor. He doesn't make that big a bucks.
I'm not gonna put that on you either, so.
I stand by my point of order regarding the dog. I think I'll be proved out as this goes along, but that's not what we're talking about.
We're talking about the mayor.
So what are we gonna do? What do you suggest?
He suggests option 3, which is to allow the town clerk to make a recording of the closed session so that he or she may be able to use that recording in covering the minutes for that closed session. That's my understanding. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then when those minutes get approved,
Then it will be destroyed.
then that recording will be destroyed.
If a councilman does do a recording, because you never know what somebody's got in their pocket,
Right.
does that become public record? If they're personal recording?
It does not become public record, but that person could share it with whomever they wish. I mean, they would be exposing themselves to liability if they did so.
But they would be exposing themselves to liability, not the council.
That's correct.
Depends on what was said. Depends on what was said in the council.
Well,
In other words, if a council person did it and in the course and scope of their employment, then the town could be responsible for the acts of one of its.
Even if the policy was that there was no recording and the recordings to be destroyed.
And if somebody violates that policy, makes a recording, the recording gets out, someone is damaged as a result of that, then the town could respond in damages.
The town could be responsible for the damages,
Yes.
even if it was just a single council member doing it. And
Because they're acting, it's like if you have an employee who driving a car and kills somebody, that's, if it's done in the course and scope of their employment, then the employer's responsible.
Even if they were acting outside of policy, if there was a policy that said not to record and they recorded anyway?
I think that's probably the case.
Let's get on with it. Mr. Winfrey, that would be violating the policy or going against the policy, but it would not necessarily be a crime. Is that a safe statement?
I think that's right. I'm not saying it's a crime.
Yeah.
Except that I think if you disclose information about minors, there's some of those may be crimes, but most of them are not.
Your point about certain things bringing liability upon the town and being actionable, and use the example of minors, I think that's a good as example as any. There's not much use in listing any others, but I certainly accept that.
Well, and furthermore than that, when you have a closed session to talk with your attorney about to get legal advice or to consult with your attorney, if that gets public, that may be a waiver of that, of your attorney-client privilege too. That's something that I find very important, but.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Mr. Medlin, our former town attorney, stated that once in an open public meeting here, that, he couldn't violate the attorney-client privilege, but a board member, if they chose to do so for whatever reason, then they were the client and could do so.
Right, and then that might be a waiver of that privilege at that point.
What do y'all want to do?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this option number 3. We adopt a policy that allows only the town clerk to record, to assist with minutes, with recording to be secured and deleted after the minutes are approved. Before minutes are finalized, any member of town council, the town clerk, or town attorney could listen to the recordings.
they're gonna be destroyed.
The town clerk will destroy them after they have done the minutes for the meeting.
After they've been approved, after the minutes have been approved, then they would.
Excuse me, after they've been,
And that's legal. That's legal to,
Well, that would be the requirement on the town staff.
right.
That's a policy, like, do we allow horses in the meeting room? That would be policy for the town staff to follow.
We're talking about something different now.
Absolutely. Interesting, doesn't it, when I can't get away with it.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
I'm not going to vote for it, no.
Mr. Landreth?
I'm not gonna vote for it either.
Mr. Jones?
I'm no.
Okay, I'm aye, but it did not carry.
I'd like to make a motion that we, give me a minute. That we adopt a policy completely prohibiting the recording of closed meetings.
Ms. Martin, what does that do to you?
Until I came here, I've never recorded a closed session. You take sufficient notes while you're in the session and prepare
Answers
for
that question, then I'll second that motion. Do we have any discussion?
I have witnessed many occasions here in the past, and during my 6 years or so, both in public meetings and in closed session, wherein there was complex discussions and motions were made. Perhaps somebody amended a motion, and at times it's been a godsend for the town staff and I guess council members to be able to go back and seek clarification and take care of errors. I think this is you make as many arguments for as you can against with this particular subject. I think I'm maybe somewhat handicapped in that I can't take notes as fast as I would like to sometimes, and I don't have any kind of shorthand training, of course, and I also have some difficulties with function with my hands from time to time, depending on what kind of work I've been doing recently and, that sort of thing. So, whatever council wants to do, that's up to y'all, but I'm not surrendering my constitutional rights.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
I guess I would be more inclined to vote for number 4. I just don't like the idea of discarding of town records per se, unless there was more of a retention policy after that point. That would make more sense to me as opposed to the retention policy of only once the town council meetings are preserved. We do have a safe, and I would, propose that the closed session meeting recording be put away in that safe. But I don't like the idea of essentially destroying a town meeting.
It could go the other way just as easily. The recording could be utilized by the town to defend itself just as easily. I don't,
Yeah,
that would be my layman's perspective on this. But, we do have Mr. Rigsby's motion to vote on.
Well, I would like to think that if we had adopted number 3 and we had an adequate recording of the recording, by a stenographer or whoever, that it would be accurate. I would like to think that would be an accurate record once it's detailed out. So are you saying that we have doubt in our people that are doing our stenography?
I'll speak to that. I have confidence in our people, but we never know what people are gonna be here. And I have witnessed it. I've come up here and spoke at the podium before and asked to have minutes changed when I wasn't even on council. So I know it does happen. It depends on who you got. These people over here might go rogue on us or something too. I doubt they will, but I'm just saying that it does. And I've listened. I've got a stack of recordings where I've listened to meetings over the years, and it does happen. Without saying much more.
Okay,
You haven't seen that, Jim, so, I understand where you're coming from 100%.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Jim?
Aye.
Derek?
I'm nay.
Jimmy?
I'm nay.
Mr. Jones?
Nay.
I'm also nay.
In my opinion, a good middle ground is number 4. Basically number 4 is saying the same thing as 3, but it's that we're just not going to discard of a meeting.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt policy number 4.
Would you like to read it out?
I'd prefer not to. We have what the heck? Adopt a policy that allows only the town clerk to record, and the recording is preserved indefinitely but secured. Council would need to decide if members of the town council who were not members at the time of the closed session could listen to the recording, and if people who were on the council at the time of the meeting could listen to the recording after their terms run.
I would add an amendment to that the town council who were not members at the time, closed session, could listen to the recording. And if people who were on the council at the time
of the meeting could listen to the recording after their terms run. I got confused in that, Derek. I'm sorry. I don't know. Council would need to decide if members of town council who were not members at the time. I don't think the town council should decide that. I think once you're elected to the town council, you ought to have access to whatever's in the town hall. That's my opinion.
I think that's talking about past town council member, like if you, once you're out.
I think it's talking about any future. There was a question that Mr. Jones and I had early on about my access to any closed sessions. And our town attorney at the time explained that I would have access to any of that. I think that's the case.
And then the flip side you need to decide is if, I'm assuming that once someone goes off town council, they would no longer have access to those.
Correct.
Yeah, there's no reason.
So that probably needs to be included in the motion.
Okay, but I need to do a couple amendments. I don't want to take any council member's right to record a meeting away.
You want to restate the motion?
Sure. Make a motion that the town adopt a policy that allows the town clerk and any town council member to record a closed session meeting. Previous town council members that are new to the board could listen to any closed session meeting as long as they are an elected official. Once any town council member's term expires, they would no longer have any access to the town's closed session meeting.
That's got it. I'll second it.
That's it.
But then that leaves the question open then of what happens to the recordings made by others than the town clerk.
But that's not against any statute, right?
That's right.
Just leaves us open. Just leaves us
Fine
open.
to mess with anybody.
Kind of where you are now.
If they want to record, I mean, that's.
Right.
Well-
I guess my perception, I'm fine with what we're doing now. We just put it in policy.
Do you want to withdraw your motion?
The one I just made?
Yeah. Leave it as it is?
I mean, I think that's pretty much what this motion is, leaving it as it is.
Except you're asking the clerk to preserve whatever the recording is.
Okay, what,
We do today.
Do we really?
if I may,
Please.
and maybe I'm confused, but we currently record closed sessions and archive them and have been ever since I've been here. I don't know what was done prior to that. I don't know if the records retention policy applies such that after, 3 years, 5 years, that sort of thing is deleted or erased, destroyed, along with some of the other things that we kind of purge from time to time so the town hall doesn't fill up with paper. So we're already doing that. The staff is already recording the closed session. A council member can record closed session and at their discretion for their purposes as an elected official, certainly with a caveat that it's sensitive information, disclosure of same could cause the town difficulty, et cetera, et cetera. I think we all understand that. I think past council members understood that. I think future council members would understand that. So with all that said, what's the problem we're trying to fix? If we're, I think the only thing on the table here is really giving guidance to the staff to continue to do it the same or to do something different, so that they're all on the same page.
I don't know if we have a problem. I think we just want to have a policy, it sounds like. But now that I'm sitting here thinking about this some more, as long as any town council member can go to the town clerk to listen to the meeting, I'm not sure of the reason any town council member would need to have a personal recording of the meeting. And I say that because I'm reading Mr. Winfrey's body language, and I think he does not like that.
Well, I think I'm concerned about these recordings floating around,
Okay.
potentially.
I certainly accept Mr. Winfrey's concern. I think that's certainly valid. That's his responsibility to point out where the mines are as we go along here.
If we make a policy that we can't, as an individual, record, and somebody still records, and it gets out, you're saying we're still liable.
Yeah.
Correct.
It doesn't matter whether we make the policy or not.
Liable in terms of only a few specific things get out. Employee performance, minor,
That's right.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, we would still, having the policy in place doesn't stop, if somebody does sneak a recording in and it gets out, because you gonna search
Right, right.
everybody?
In this day and age, you know, a
it's
recorder,
not-
there's no telling how small they could be made now.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if it takes the liability off of council and the town, I would be for it.
Well,
Because they'd still do it, but if it's not taking the liability off the town, I see no reason.
Well, to the extent that you can, if the town could say, we were not aware that this Councilman X was recording this, and he or she did so in violation of policy, that's better than saying, well, we never prohibited anybody from recording to start with. I mean, I think you're slightly better off to have said, to be able to say, if you can truthfully say, no one knew Councilman X was recording. They were rogue, if you will, in recording it, and we were not aware of it until it hit the Northwest Observer, that it was out there.
I'll withdraw my motion. Okay. I'm gonna make a motion.
And it will.
I've withdrawn all my motions, and I'm gonna make one. Hopefully this brings it on home. I'm gonna make a motion that the town clerk record all closed session meetings and preserve that closed session meeting. Should not be discarded. And that any town council member shall not make personal recordings of any closed session meeting. I think that covers my intent. I don't want to discard of any meetings, but I want town council and staff to be able to reference that, whoever's on the town council at the time, to reference any meeting. That's my motion, sir.
I'll second that.
He's not here, he's an automatic.
Help me understand this one. What good does that do us?
Well, I think for one thing, I think this conversation started out by saying we need a policy. So
Yeah.
this is the policy. In essence, it's really no different than today. But it just puts it, what we do today in policy. I guess there's no rule or policy against any individual recording the meeting. But any town council member can go listen to that recording. So what's
The mayor has stepped out of the room. Should we suspend discussion on this until he returns?
Mayor Pro Tem, 2-minute recess.
I'll call a 2-minute recess.
Don't want him to miss nothing.
Honey, don't keep the food warm for me tonight. I think I'll be late.
Keep the Bunsen burner.
Well, never put that together. Okay, so that
name is James, so when I paid for him, I guess I did it online, I paid for Cole. So they said that was the call, to the school.
Like if y'all talk about so-and-so's doing a terrible job.
So,
One of the protections
when I put his,
against corruption is
when I put his, when I go back, like, I get out of that screen, I go back in and see if I can bring pictures, so you can put his name in, the student name, it brings up Cole. So they have him as Cole in the system, but they bring across his pictures. It's like the other guy, it's like pressing. Never on time, it's never right.
And then it upset her proper tone.
It's always like 40, 45 bucks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they like to put it. But you not to buy them because you're the kids, you know?
Yeah. And they don't put it, make it so you can just buy it.
Yeah. It's always like 45 bucks or so.
Well, if they had a policy,
And they got you.
well, if they had a policy, they could ask you to stop it. If you didn't, they would remove the meeting. If you have a policy.
Put it over and say,
If you know.
If you know
Is Mike all right?
say,
Okay, so let's say, you don't, I was going there, but I didn't disturb things.
Better watch out. You know, I would run into something.
So let's say we didn't, it was, that's right.
That water sure has come in handy.
well, unless, depends what they discuss.
He lays on my head in the morning.
If they,
Long 2 minutes. It's a long 2 minutes.
I don't even think they got that.
it was the fact of whether they could. Right, and I think they didn't have any kind of policy. Dina thought they were. Dina didn't move forward.
Well, there was I told Robbie, I said, if I call out, it's their email.
Gentleman's agreement was fine until.
I guess it's not allergies, which has been going around my house. That's exactly right. But I really think it's our allergies. But I knew.
Yeah, but if there's a policy, you can't do anything. Let everybody report and
Has anybody checked on the mayor?
and hope that. Let's see, so you're absent. I guess, of course, excuse me. I guess. Yeah. Excuse me.
No problem.
Like I say, that's my only definite concern. No, I just do technology that goes obsolete every 10 to 15 years.
How do you look when he?
Well, yes, I guess the thing to do is.
You know, he's,
excuse him and-
you know,
If he's in distress, we ought to check him. You might just give.
they checked on him, didn't they? Did you check on the mayor?
all right, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting back to order.
Whoa.
I think it'd be appropriate to excuse Mike for the vote here. Because if we proceed and go ahead and vote,
As I understand it, Mayor Crawford asked that we continue on.
yes,
Okay, he's got something to attend to. Okay. I'm fine with that.
okay. Jim, you good excusing Mike for the vote?
Yes.
The only reason I say that is because if we don't, he's an automatic aye. So he's excused from the vote. The motion on the floor was to adopt a policy that only the town clerk can record closed session meetings and will retain, all right, Mike's back, and will retain the recording of the closed session meeting, and that no council member would be permitted to record the closed session meeting on their personal device. However, any town council member may listen to any closed session meeting during their time of their service. So that was my motion, and I think it was second.
I second
Okay.
it.
Any discussion? Mr. Rigsby,
Aye.
Mr. Foy,
Aye.
Mr. Landrith,
No,
Mr. Jones.
Nay.
I love this. I love this.
earn your money.
Guess you're going to go, who looks the best, which side of the table?
Well, I could say something.
That's all right. There's no limit on the number of motions we can make.
I'm gonna vote no. Let's leave it the way it is.
Okay, that was 1-4, correct?
2-3.
2-3.
2-3, excuse me. Who voted, who's the two that voted for it? Mr. Rigsby?
Mr. Rigsby, Mr. Foy.
Okay,
All right, I surrender. Let's move on.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, this is enough. Moving on to new business, consideration of resolution setting filing fees for Town of Stokesdale municipal election on November 7th, 2023. Somebody's gonna have to help me out with what this is involved, Dale.
The Board of Elections requests this every election year, that you all set your own filing fees. It's been $5, it's my understanding, for probably ever,
All right.
but they do require the resolution be adopted, or we need to change it.
Just a movie ticket.
Sorry?
Movie
Yes.
Should it be as much as a movie ticket, just so we, change it?
Do we receive these fees?
No, I don't think so.
Just something we
The
had.
Board of Election receives these fees. I make a motion that we set it at $5 as it is now.
I'll second, but I'd like to make an amendment that we raise it to 10. I think we should get in sync with the times. We got inflation.
Fair enough on that, but $5 is kind of the Stokesdale sacred cow. It's tradition.
Yeah, people like to give that $5 away.
I still got my receipt.
Yeah.
We have a second?
Wait,
Mr. Mayor, I believe the proper motion will be to adopt the resolution.
yes, and Mr. Jones made an amendment. Is that accepted or does that die?
Okay, so my motion is to adopt the resolution. And Mr. Jones wants to increase it to $10.
Correct.
Do you accept his
Do
motion?
you accept the amendment?
No.
Okay, then I will second your motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
I'm gonna vote no.
I'm gonna vote aye. That's done. Consideration to allow Deputy Town Clerk to attend 2023 Clerks Summer Conference and 2023 Master Clerks Academy. May I inquire as to how much time this involves?
So for the NCAMC, the North Carolina Association of Municipal Clerks Summer Conference, that would be a 4-night, 4-day, 4-night event. I believe it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that is in August. And then the Master Clerks Academy is in November. That is a 2.5-day technically event, Wednesday, Thursday, half of Friday.
I make a motion that we allow the deputy clerk to attend both.
I'll second the motion. Kim, is this in next year's budget?
We got any money set aside for this?
This is for
24.
be for next year, right? Yes.
It'll be next year's budget, yes.
Yeah, I need, so this is separate from the other half, right, that I just kept in mind.
Yeah, this is.
So we haven't adopted the budget. You would just need to get it in there.
And so I'll need to look at that, because I don't have that.
I wanted to get the numbers before you sooner, but they still haven't opened registration. I keep checking the website. Was able to finally get a good course cost from them, even though they haven't posted the registration yet. Hotel prices I were able to get. The good part is the earlier you book the hotel, the cheaper you get it. And that's the case with just about every clerk-related schooling. but that is not the same as the clerk certification course that I'm already taking.
Robbie, would the cash disbursement for the registration occur this year, or would that occur after July 1?
It'd be after July. Yeah, it'd be after July 1. Correct. And I think they usually open registration for that purpose. They understand that it's fiscal years that we're working here with, so usually they open that registration after July 1.
Okay.
Now, what are we gonna do when we get him trained up and he, takes off on us?
We'll shoot him,
Most of the-
we'll hunt him down and we'll shoot him.
No, you have, but you're getting this, you know,
Most of the issue is with the hotel reservation. As soon as it opens, and it will open prior to July, within a few days, it will be full. And he, will have to go somewhere else at a much higher cost. The conference itself, registration, you can pay it anytime up before the conference.
Well, he can make his hotel reservations without having to pay it. All he's got to do is give him a credit card to hold it.
That's
So
correct.
he can do all of that. We won't have any expense until after
They
June 30th.
May charge you one night deposit, but it wouldn't be the whole amount.
That's only if he cancels.
No, I actually, some hotels do charge one night as a deposit. I just experienced that in Atlanta.
It's upon check.
It was about $200.
That's because you were there for Taylor Swift, and the demand that weekend was very high in Atlanta.
I was there for a cultural experience, but thank you, Dave. I didn't realize they charged my card.
Okay. Again, my motion is to allow the deputy clerk to attend both of these. Do we have a second?
Second, yes, sir.
Okay.
Do we need to authorize the expenditure? Do we need an amount on this?
I don't think so. This is not going to be outlandish.
How does Ms. Thacker know what's a bona fide bill to pay without it? I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's on the bottom of it's got the combined cost.
it's right here.
Down here at the bottom.
I understand that, but it's not in this part of this motion.
Oh,
We spend money by making motions.
I'll make a motion to add up to $4,000 for the education, including the costs associated with it, such as hotel cost. I'd like to add that to your motion, Mr. Mayor.
I accept that amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Kim, I think you might need to find room for this in next year's budget. I would recommend decreasing the administrative assistant line item by $4,000.
Gotcha.
Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith? Got to educate him.
he's good as his word.
Mr. Jones?
I am I.
And I am I. I think we moved number 14 to number 11A, am I correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you for catching that.
Consideration of capital project ordinance for construction of park improvements, pardon me, and/or water line extensions.
Kudos to the talented Ms. Martin for pointing out before we enter into any major project for the town, expenditure of grant funds, that we do need a project ordinance for that. So, Ms. Martin, if you could just talk about the necessity to having this and you putting it together and all the things, and I'll make a motion.
I am not a finance person, so if you ask me a question I cannot answer, I'll be glad to get that answer for you. But I know in the past, anytime I was aware of any major capital projects, a project ordinance was required. So in accordance with General Statutes 159-13-2, project ordinance, any capital project means a project in whole or in part by the proceeds of bond, notes, or debt instruments, or a project involving the construction or acquisition of a capital asset. Number 2 to that is a grant project, means any project that's financed in whole or in part by revenues received from federal and/or state grants. So our park improvement projects fall in both of those categories, and therefore you are required to adopt a project ordinance. It sort of operates as a mini budget within your budget. You're required to identify the projects that your capital projects, what methods you use to fund it, whether it's grant funds, installment purchases, or whatever, and your budget for that particular project. Any amendments to that, if you add additional playground, for example, or additional pickleball court, or anything of that nature, you would be required to amend it, as well as if you decide to delete a piece of it, you could decrease it. So beyond that, I don't know that I can answer your questions, but I'll be glad to.
Ms. Martin, should we include the source of this funding, which I would propose would be $50,000 small
Yes.
town development grant?
Yes.
As well as the American Rescue Plan?
Whatever funds you plan to use, it needs to be recorded in that ordinance.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance for making appropriations for the funding of the Stokesdale Town Park Capital Projects Ordinance Fund, with the caveat that we also add the source of the funding, $50,000 small town development grant from the state of North Carolina, and the American Rescue Plan from the federal government for the balance of this.
I'll second it.
One note, Ms. Thacker and I will need to get the account numbers. Other than that, the ordinance will be executed as it is.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Martin, up at the top, there's a blank here where it says ordinance number 0-2023. Would this be number 1 or number 2? Number
Probably.
5, but staff will take care of making sure it's numbered properly. Thank you.
We don't number it just in case it gets turned down, and then the next one, that way we don't miss a number.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, council can amend this at any time?
That's correct.
And looking ahead, we probably have some water capital projects which would
Correct.
require an additional project ordinance?
If it's a capital project or it's funded by grant funds, you'd be required to.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. You're saving us.
And this one in particular, well, okay, yes, I think you're on the right track. This one is just for the town park, so if we did a water, we wouldn't amend this one, we'd create a new one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion?
Who seconded that?
I seconded it. Mr. Foy made the motion and I seconded it. Mr. Rigsby.
Aye.
Mr. Foy.
Aye.
Mr. Landrith. Aye. Mr. Jones.
I am aye.
And I am also aye. Moving right along, consideration to construct basketball and pickleball courts at Stokesdale Town Park.
It's my item, Mr. Mayor. I look forward to discussing this, although I don't think there's any way I could do as good as Mr. T did earlier. But what I'll do is just kind of, go over some of the items I'm presenting, then we're going to share some pictures on the big screen. We'll go over the bids, and I do intend to make a motion and vote tonight. So we're looking at basketball courts and pickleball courts. We'd have 6 basketball goals in the basketball court. The court is high school regulation size, the long way. In the short way there, we have 2 more additional courts with painted lines. Also, proposing that the town have 2 pickleball courts as well. You can see the picture of that, and there is an 8-foot fence around that. We have spec'd out the sport court, modular court in the RFP. It's a polypropylene product. It's a tile. The product is manufactured here in the United States in Salt Lake City. The manufacturer has been in business for 50 years. There is a 15-year warranty that comes with this. T mentioned that the national governing body of pickleball, can you imagine that, huh? Has endorsed this product and entered to a 3-year contract with Sport Court. Sport Court and their value proposition does stress safety and what they call vertical lateral forgiveness and shock absorption, which should lower the injuries on impact. But we all know that if you fall on a hard surface, it's going to hurt. So, I mean,
Especially
But-
if you're 70.
Yeah. The geometry of the sport court tiles was designed for consistent play with no dead spots when you're bouncing a basketball or paddling back and forth a pickleball. The surface does provide better wet and dry traction. In fact, when T and I, it was important to us to see this product that was old, 13-year product, to make sure it's still durable and held up. In fact, we drove up on a rainy day, and I was impressed with the, I guess, the friction. It's not very slippery product at all. But the 13-year-old court did look good. In 2021, the manufacturer Sport Court did partner with Mississippi Polymer Institute and developed what they call a best-in-class color fade resistance tile. So, I mean, this is going to look good and be good utility for a long, long time. These are going to be exceptional quartz. The price difference, if we did not choose to go with the Sport Cord product, and just went with regular, concrete or asphalt, this project would be roughly $80,000 less than what I'm going to present tonight. So I think there is good value in that. We'll show some pictures later on of what, a good concrete or asphalt court looks like. To the best of my knowledge, there's really only two kinds of concrete or asphalt, and that, the first being the kind that's already cracked, and the second being the kind that will crack. So, having this, we will not face issues with that are in other parts of concrete that's cracked and then becomes a maintenance issue, and, it's not nearly as good. So, I don't know, I've talked enough. I'm kind of starting to sound like the ShamWow guy trying to sell this. But if we can look through, Robbie, if we can fast forward through the pictures here to look at the Sport Court product, this is definitely not it.
That's not it. That's what happens if you don't.
So this is the rendering the contractor, Carolina Sport Court. He sent me two based off, a very common color scheme, where green would be the predominant color and the free throw lanes would be in blue. And then hit the next slide, Robbie.
Change that blue to.
Yeah.
You want red, don't you? I hear you, brother.
That should be Stokesdale's color, anyway, like it.
Well, the colors are, we'll decide that.
You're outside your authority.
Yeah.
Are you referring to the pictures that you took of, like, that I showed with you?
The ones I emailed you today, the slide I emailed you today.
This is.
Okay, so this is Burmill Park on what was their repurposed old tennis court. So obviously, you see that the paint, which is relatively new in the last 4 years, has faded over time. And that court has always had cracks in it. That's an old tennis court that was repurposed for pickleball. Now, Burmill Park did install, I believe in the last year, 10 new pickleball courts, concrete surface. And if you could show the picture of that, Robbie, it's somewhere in there. There it is. Guys, this is hard to see, but that's a big old crack in there in that nice shiny blue paint. So, we would avoid issues like that with the Sport Court product on both the basketball and pickleball courts. So that's really what I wanted to show council tonight. I did prepare a bid summary for everybody. And once I find it, I'm gonna go over it. All right, so the bids we received were from Sport Court Carolina, located out of Charlotte, North Carolina. For this project would have been $404,500. There was no North Carolina general contractor license provided. However, there was a South Carolina general contractor license provided. I do want to note that the limitation on the general contractor license was a classification BD2, which means building and dollar limit per job of $200,000. So something didn't add up there. Second quote we got was from Carolina Sport Court. That was in the amount of $297,216. However, they did not present their general contractor license with that. I did have further discussion with Carolina Sport Court. Asked them to sharpen their pencil a little bit, and they did to the tune of about $16,000. And We also came off on having the park benches right there on the basketball court, as well as reducing the height of the fence from 10 feet to 8 feet. So they came off the price, another $16,000 for that. So kind of a shared price reduction, and they were at $262,555. However, there was still no general contractor license provided. They were not able to provide those, so that bid became null and void. They did partner with Main Street Design out of Wake Forest, North Carolina, for the same scope of work. Main Street Design did present a proposal to the town, provided their North Carolina general contractor's license. It's currently active into 12/31/23. License limitation unlimited, classification building. That amount was for $295,062. Lastly, we had CJ Builders of Stokesdale, North Carolina submit a bid. That amount was $297,836. Also included everything that was included in the Main Street Design bid. However, they did price out what would be needed to get a to get a permit passed by Guilford County, and that is an engineered site plan. So, there is value in that. With that being said, I have a motion, and I've written it out here. Municipalities, they need to accept the lowest price, responsible, and responsive builder. It's my opinion, because CJ Builders included a site plan needed for permitting for a project of this size. The site plan itself comes with a 5-figure price tag. They meet these 3 requirements. So I'm going to make a motion to accept the bid from CJ Builders in the amount of $297,836 to oversee the construction and manage all contractors for the project addition to add basketball courts and pickleball courts at Stokesdale Town Park. The project subcontractor included Carolina Sport Court will install the sport court surface, 6 basketball goals, and 2 pickleball courts, and the netting and all line associated with that. The source of the funding for this project is $50,000 from the Small Town Development Grant from the state of North Carolina, with the balance being from the federal government's American Rescue Plan.
I'll second that motion if you would consider a couple of amendments, Mr. Foy.
Yes, sir.
Number one, I want that 8-foot fence moved back to a 10-foot fence some way, somehow. And number two, this one I think is more important. I've perused through all this paperwork looking at it, and I have a concern about the soil underneath the slab. What I want to see, this being a municipal project, circumstances being what they are, troubles the town's had with this building, the park, fire department construction, et cetera, the list goes on, that I think that soil beneath that slab should be checked by an engineer. Some sort of study should be provided and included as part of this. Somebody, I don't know who needs to pay for this, either the contractor or the town directly, but I think it's very important that this be done. I have read, of course, I see the rock clause here, and it does state that if they encounter, rock or unsuitable soil conditions, then the charges will be to the town at the town's expense. But what I don't see here is, it makes a statement, any cost incurred due to bad soil that requires engineering support or undercutting will be at the town's expense. But I don't know how we get to the point, who makes that determination that we have a bad soil situation. So thus, my concern that we need to have an engineer deal with this before construction.
It's going to take 10 to 12 weeks before construction starts. The site plan, they haven't started on the site plan because they're not under contract. I don't know enough about soil to know enough about it.
I'm probably the only one in the room that's held a general contractor's building license in the state, but this kind of jumps out at me. I'm not saying that we got bad soil, but I'm just saying that this is a very large investment for us to find out that we have some sort of soil structure problem beneath the site. It's rare in Stokesdale in my experience, but I have seen it. I have seen situations where foundations needed to be engineered.
Okay. For a building.
For any structure, yeah. Generally, I think the soils in our area are pretty good for building, but these things do happen.
It's part of the site plan, and I don't know the answer to this. I
Well,
mean,
it typically would be either because there's rock, or there's underground water that wasn't discovered in the beginning, or there's just a scenario where it's swampy and there's just basically no bottom in the site. Sometimes to build a home, it may require trucking in 6 foot of sand rock or something like that. But in all those cases, that's an engineered solution by a PE. It's not something a contractor would make a call on just shooting from the hip.
well, I mean, I don't know how much I'm okay with a soil test. I don't have a clue how much something like that would cost. And I don't want to tie it on to this.
Well, I don't think we can change the contractor's bid, but what we can do is put a bookmark in somewhere in this process and say the town is going to hire its own engineer to check the site for the suitability of this slab.
Could we make a motion tonight to allocate funds from the same source for this said engineering?
Okay, well, then if I...
That would be a subsequent motion.
Yes, I think we could do that. So anyway, your motion, I'm asking for the 2 amendments to raise the fence from 8 to 10. My simple concern is that, adults playing basketball can be pretty fast, pretty aggressive. I don't want basketballs flying over that fence and hitting an old fella in the head or an infant that's in a stroller or something like that. That's where I'm coming from, just basic safety about that. And then my concern about the soil engineering being done as a precaution. I mean, I think it's good insurance. I think it's something we need to do.
I can't add the soil to the motion.
The area up there, my gut about it, it's in a little bit of a drainage way, low-lying area. I've been up in those woods. And so there's also, I believe there's an old home site up there that had a trailer there, I remember from many moons ago. I know there's a pole and a transformer up there, there's evidence. I think I see a spot up there where there may have been an old septic tank. If that's there, then it's possible there's a well somewhere in the area we haven't discovered and need to attend to. So
How's that going to be discovered with a soil test?
Well, that's why I suggested at one point that we clear the area before we, have it under a separate contract before we started making plans to build on it. That was one reason, so to make that sort of thing discoverable. It may not be. It may be something, they may discover a well when they start excavating for this slab, or they may discover a septic system when they start excavating for this slab. But my point is that I want to make sure the substrate underneath this slab is solid. The substrate being the subsoil. Usually you don't build on topsoil, you build on subsoil. And then you add aggregate, whether it's 4 inches or 8 inches of stone or what have you. Then they pour the concrete. And in this particular case, the concrete's going to have a layer of this special material that you were just speaking about. And for all of it to work, it's got to remain stable, I hope for 100 years, given the amount of money we spending. And so that's my concern that I want to bring to council.
There's a town hall here, there's a lot of homes built, there's a school built here. What makes you think that soil will be any different, or do you not think that? You just want, out of an abundance of caution, this is your suggestion?
I think based on my experience, I've only been involved in this sort of thing for 50 years.
I can't include that as part of this motion. I can make a subsequent motion.
I agree, we can't change the contractor's bid, I agree with that.
I hear you, and I don't know enough about it to.
But when Mr. Winfrey reviews the contract materials and so forth, we can put in a requirement that the town will have our own engineer look at the soil, do some sort of geological study underneath this slab, make sure we're okay. My trouble here is, I don't know whether this would be $3,000 or $15,000. I don't have a good feel for that.
The word engineer leads me to believe it's gonna be closer to 15 than 3.
Maybe. You know, this is what, there's specialty companies that do this sort of thing. It's done every day, particularly on commercial projects. And just because it might have been skipped on this building, you know, that doesn't impress me. I know we've had problems down at the park that I won't get into right here, but,
Right.
you can't say we had all our bases covered when this facility was constructed, because we didn't.
I think it's a good idea. I just don't know enough about it to even get the process going. I'll learn it. I'll figure it out. Maybe you could help. But, I mean, you have a lot of experience in that regard, but I don't dispute that it might be a good idea. I don't know.
Would our contractor not?
Well, I mean,
He's been building houses for 50 years too.
he's been, you know, he's
I'm
done a
just
lot
saying,
more than
I'm not-
houses.
I'm not saying he will, I'm just, yeah, he's been doing commercial property.
Absolutely has.
So what would our recourse be if, it does come up bad and we've already signed a contract with, would we have to move it, or could we get out of the contract?
There's a clause in there for bad soil in the proposal.
That's along the lines of a standard rock clause.
So there would be more money to correct that issue at the time. I don't know how to correct bad soil.
The difference in what we're talking about here is, and I'm not questioning the builder's judgment, but he's not a PE. So the way this rock clause is written, if they discover a scenario where they think there's a problem, then they're gonna call the town and say, hey, we got rock, or we got a soil problem here, the town needs to pay for this. What I'm trying to do is put that decision in the hands of a professional engineer that does that type of work.
Now, there is,
If I understand what you're saying, you want to have compaction tested after grading's done, is that?
That's one way to do it. So, to give you an example, I've a lot of times I've seen them check jobs by after they prepare the substrate. They'll run a loaded dump truck back and forth over every inch of that area to make sure it's solid. You know, I want some checking done here to make sure that we succeed.
isn't that part of site preparation?
Not necessarily.
How are they gonna do a soil test today? Is it just taking an auger out and doing a cross-section of the earth in 4 or 6 spots?
I think that'd be up to the engineering company, but a lot of times they use a small truck that's got a drill with an auger on it that's, 3-4 inches in diameter. If you recall, you've seen them all up and down the road with those rigs.
Sure.
We'll have to clear the land first, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think, what comes first here? Do you propose this done after the site clears?
I'm saying that we need to, put something in the contract here that will leave a space for the town to have this soil checked. Now, if council don't wanna do it, hey.
Oh, I don't have a problem with getting a soil check, by no means.
I don't either.
And I apologize, I could have researched this a little better and brought it
No,
to
it's
council.
okay. That's
just-
perfectly fine.
How
I
can
mean,
we do it? How can we approve this project tonight and then put that in?
Well, this is not exactly in contract form,
Right, I mean,
and I assume Mr. Winfrey is gonna interface with this company and, review contract and.
should this pass, the subsequent motion is gonna be for Mr. Winfrey to draft up the contract.
Perfect. Then maybe we can have that discussion with Mr. Winfrey, how we can put a clause in there, that the town is gonna have a engineering study of the soil beneath this to make sure we're okay. How about that?
I'm fine with that. The first question I would have is the contractor, when are you gonna do that? Do I need to wait for these results before we start?
Timely fashion is all I could say, in a reasonable amount of time. I will withdraw my request for that amendment and second your motion. That just leaves the request for a 10-foot fence versus 8.
Tim, you're coming from a good spot there. That's an extra $12,000 that I truly don't think we need. If there's gonna be a kid or an adult that can get that ball over that fence, they're gonna get it over 8 feet or 10 feet. You gotta think the basketball court on the long side is gonna sit away
Has the committee examined these fence heights in detail, 12-foot versus 10 versus 8 versus 4 and no fence?
Talking to Carolina Sport Court, about half of their projects are 10 foot and half are 8. 12, I didn't ask, to be honest. Half are 10, half are 8. I would say that the setback for these goals off that fence on the long side is gonna be 10 foot. Now, on the short side, it's gonna be shorter, obviously. It's gonna be 4 feet. But the rim extends from that basketball goal another 4 feet. So you either have to have a desire to throw that ball over that fence, or, you know, you have to be the worst basketball player ever.
I'm close.
But, you know, but I really think it would take, not malicious desire, but I think it would take a concerted effort to, I'm gonna throw that ball over that fence, like in Napoleon Dynamite, when that guy says, "You think I could throw that ball over the mountains?"
In the interest of moving on here, I withdraw my request for that amendment and second the motion. You know,
Any further discussion?
All that discussion, please.
The motion is to accept,
I can email it to you.
the motion is to accept the CJ
Builders.
Builders.
I'll repeat it.
Proposal.
Make a in the amount of $297,836 to oversee the construction and manage all contractors for the project addition to add basketball courts and pickleball courts at Stokesdale Town Park. The subcontractor, Carolina Sport Court, will install the sport court surface, 6 basketball goals, 2 pickleball courts and netting, and all line painting. The source of the funding for this project is $50,000 from the Small Town Development Grant from the state of North Carolina, with the balance being from the federal government's American Rescue Plan.
And,
I received an email this morning.
yeah, and because the funding for this would come from ARPA, Kim's got something to add.
And I don't know if it can be, I've got to do a little more research on this, but I did receive an email this morning from the North Carolina League of Municipalities talking about the ARPA funds, and it tells me that any monies that are spent, it says that we have to make sure that any person or business that are receiving any funds that we are paying the funds to have not been suspended or debarred from the federal government. And it's given me 3 options for performing the verification. So my question to Mr. Winfrey on this is, and I do see that CJ Builders, and I'm not questioning anyone on that, of course not, but would that fall under as well, like if he's gonna get subcontractors? Or would it just be CJ Builders that I would need to, get the certification from them that they've not been debarred or suspended?
I think the primary sub was the,
Carolina Sport Court.
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I would check on, I think those 2, probably covers. There are other subs?
And none of their sub, it would just be the business itself?
I think that's right.
Well, disbarred or suspended from what?
It says from the federal government.
From the
In
federal
any
government?
way, I guess from receiving federal funds, or they haven't paid their taxes, or, I'm going to find out more about this, but I did just receive this afternoon, and I
So the
thought,
question I need to ask these guys, have you been
have you paid your
suspended or
taxes?
disbarred from the federal government?
Well, there is, it gives me 3 options to perform the verification, and I'll send this to you in an email. How about that?
And I think
And together,
And I think this needs to be done before it's executed, I think would be fine, as long as we do that before they execute the agreement.
and, yeah, because there is a part in there where it says we can add language to the contract with the person, so, of the subaward.
You fools send that to me.
Thank
I
you.
will, and so I just received that this afternoon, so I
No,
apologize.
we're cool.
Okay.
I think we'll be all right here.
Well, I do too, but, it's my duty to do. my due
Absolutely, and I
diligence, so.
appreciate it so much.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith? Aye. Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am also aye. Moving right along.
No.
No, 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 okay.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that Chuck Winfrey draft up,
Yes,
Mr. Winfrey, town attorney, draft up the contract and work with CJ Builders, we can make that connection, to get the contract ratified. You'll need to send Mr. Winfrey, well, actually, that's my motion, then I'm gonna have a few comments.
Define your word ratified as it applies to this motion, if you would, Mr. Foy.
Signed, in place. Executed, I like that one even best, that's,
So I'm being asked to vote on a contract that hadn't been drafted yet.
no, you're being asked to allow Mr. Winfrey to draft it.
There's two different things. So it's gonna come back to council, we'll review the contract.
absolutely not.
Excuse me?
No. I don't think that's necessary. Council has approved the expenditure. Mr. Winfrey's putting together the legal document for us to be under contract.
I just always have a great reluctance about voting on drafts that I don't have in my hand.
The state of North Carolina requires municipalities to retain an attorney's services for this purpose.
I understand, Mr. Foy.
We've got to trust the attorney would do this.
So I guess if that's the case, the motion should also authorize the mayor to execute the contract once it's been finalized.
Yes. If our legal guy's good, then I'm good. See, I mean, that's
As long as I don't have to go to Atlanta, I'm cool.
right. Where am I off base here?
Okay, we have a motion. I'll second the motion. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Rigsby.
Aye.
Mr. Foy.
Aye.
Mr. Landrith. Mr. Jones.
I'm nay.
And I am aye. So please, if you would, Mr. Winfrey, put it together for us. This is Mr. Jones's consideration proposal to repair areas of erosion at Stokesdale Town Hall. He has a bid here from Yates Construction.
Actually, Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
I
Foy.
think Mr. Foy obtained that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Town Park, not Hall.
That's right. Okay, but anyway, we have a bid from Yates Construction for the repair of the erosion problems that we're experiencing.
Yes, sir, the erosion problems are significant as identified by the pictures in our agenda packet. Mr. Gene Robertson and Mr. Yates have assessed the issue and provided the solution to form and pour a concaved concrete slab to direct water into the existing flared and discharge outlet where the existing stormwater is directed off the property now into the riprap ditch at a cost of $4,500. They're gonna also add riprap to the sides of the culvert pipe to prevent future erosion along the edges, and also riprap in two other locations where riprap areas have, this location needs some attention. And I love saying the word riprap. I make a motion that we accept the proposal from Yates Construction in the amount of $4,500 to address these erosion issues.
I'll second it. Is there any
Mr. Ford.
discussion?
The one thing that I might add is, it may be best to, let's say, pending pre-audit certification from the finance officer.
I failed to mention that these should come from the American Rescue Plan and be under the capital project for, I believe we budgeted $50,000 for upgrades to the existing park for
Okay.
issues like this. So,
The ARPA plan?
yes,
Okay.
the funds would come from this. And I've verified with Kara Malonzi with the School of Government that this will be a proper expenditure of these monies.
You gonna
Okay.
add that to the motion?
Yeah. So the motion, I said, would be to accept Yates Construction Company's proposal of $4,500 to correct the erosion issues at the back of Stokesdale Town Park, and that the funds used to pay for this should come from the American Rescue Plan.
And I second that. Any further discussion? Mr. Rigsby.
Aye.
Mr. Foy.
Aye.
Mr. Landrith.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
And I am also aye. This is a relocation of Carragmore Court Water System Blow-Off Assembly.
Mr. Mayor, I asked for that to be placed on the agenda. We don't have all the paperwork assembled for that item to be heard by council. I'd like to request it be continued.
Okay, we'll continue item number 15 until our next meeting. We're open for
That's my motion.
I don't think it's gonna require a motion, we'll just continue it on to the next meeting. Just like we continued this, just like we continued the discussion regarding the recording of closed sessions. There was no motion there.
Yeah, there was. It failed.
Excuse me, folks.
It just didn't pass. We didn't take any action.
All right, so
A continuing item is perfectly permissible.
that's what I thought. Do you need to make a motion for that? Feel free.
Make a motion to continue?
I did.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Landrith,
What?
I need a second.
I thought somebody did second it.
Nobody seconded
Right
it.
behind you,
Second.
brother.
I'm automatic, second.
I know that. That's why I went to you. Is there any discussion on continuing this? Mr. Rigsby? Wake up.
I'm just wanting, I was my understanding that project had already been accomplished. I don't know why we need to move this down another month. It's already been moved.
We're talking about Carragmore Court Water System Blow-Off Assembly.
Mr. Rigsby, if you'd contact me, I'd be glad to discuss it with you.
If it's an open meeting, I'll just assume discuss it in an open meeting, but my understanding was it had already been moved, that's all.
Again, that's my motion. If nobody wants to vote for it, then I guess it will not be continued.
No.
Mr. Foy?
No, let's talk about it.
All right, well, I vote no too if you want to talk
Mr.
about it.
Jones has stated that he didn't have all the documentation he wanted for this, which was the reason for the continuation. So I've got 2 no's. Mr. Landrith?
I've already voted. No. I said if they want to talk about it, no.
Mr. Jones?
The motion was to continue. Aye.
Doesn't make any difference. Aye. Okay, so,
I still believe that any council member can continue an item on the agenda. I don't understand that at all, why it would take a vote.
I mean, I'm okay with continuing it. I'm just saying, you guys seem like y'all want to talk about it, and I'm not going to stop.
I'm fine talking about it. It's the,
Well, I mean, you approve the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, so this was on the agenda. If somebody wants to come off the agenda,
okay, but let's talk about, we can talk about it, but it wasn't one meeting ago, we continued a Hazen and Sawyer proposal that was on the agenda. So, I would just ask for consistency. Let's talk about
without
this.
objection, though, I think there were, I don't call that.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, Tim.
Y'all have lost me. I'm sorry. I made a motion to continue this agenda item.
And it did not pass, so we're gonna discuss the agenda item.
And I'll state it again, we don't have all the paperwork to discuss this, in my opinion.
Is there any more discussion?
Yeah, this whole thing is frustrating. So the town, explain what the town has done with the blow-off valves, Tim. You've got a lot more acumen and knowledge of this than me. Please don't make me sit up here and stutter on this. You put it on the agenda, let's talk.
I don't think that would be appropriate, Mr. Foy. We don't have all the paperwork concerning this.
Why did you put it on the agenda without all the paperwork then?
I had hoped we would have it by the time the meeting arrived.
That's a fair point.
This is kind of like dove hunting sometimes. You kind of have to lead some of these items sometimes, not knowing exactly what's going to be available when you get to the meeting. My apologies for any inconvenience to council.
No, no inconvenience here. The issue was the town, who's the company? I don't even know the company.
This is
You need to
A&D.
explain what we've done. I can't even talk about it. There's a reason that I'm wanna talk here in a minute, but Tim's gotta preference this.
Mr. Foy, again, I think it's in the best interest of the council, the town, everybody concerned if we delay this item.
That wasn't your concern when you put it on the agenda. All right, Robbie, can you explain what we've done with A&D, what they're doing in the town, what we've hired them to do at a rate of $250 per hour? Please, do you know that?
Yeah, yes, sir. I haven't, followed them around or anything, but what the contract was that you all approved was for them to go around town and do flushing of the blow-off valves. There's blow-off valves that are connected to the water system throughout the entire town. They have not been flushed, and so it's good practice to do this. They have went around and began flushing these valves. They've first started by locating them and flushing the ones that they've located. Then the ones they had issues locating, they've received assistance to get those located. They flushed them, and we do pay them $250 an hour per crew to do this flushing, and it's good preventative maintenance. It keeps the water lines clean. It keeps sediment out of the water lines, and they've done it in a pretty timely manner.
How's it gone as a whole?
Gone well.
Don't talk about the exceptions yet. We're gonna get to that, but as a whole.
As a whole, it's been getting done. There does seem to be some issues that some of the valves have had a issue with leaking afterwards, but that was kind of to be expected because some of these valves have never been turned. You don't really know what you're going to get until you turn them. But I haven't, we're fortunate that Mr. Hodges has filled out a pretty extensive log per blow-off. I haven't taken the time to look at each and every, entry in his log. But I do think that he's done a very good job of locating them and getting them done, much faster than I ever thought they would. So.
Yeah, I agree they're doing a good job too. So I ran into an issue at my personal residence with this, so.
There has been some issues with the location of some of the blow-offs.
The biggest issue with the town, so if I sound salty, well, it's because I am. When my house was constructed, that my driveway was installed over one of these blow-off valves. So my driveway had to be dug up. Those guys were out there for about 5 hours, relocated the blow-off valve. I guess knowing how much it cost, I came up and I wrote a check for 5 hours of work times $250. Priscilla, it's in the bank account now. I don't want to make it look like that I'm getting any special preferential treatment from the town. I paid to have my driveway repaved, out of my money, not town's money. That's what is important to me. So, I guess that's all that I want to say about it. In the future, when we have contractors that are going to turn the water off, that'll affect an entire street, it'd be good to inform those citizens. In the future, when we have a contractor that's going to show up and dig up somebody's driveway, it'd be good if they called the person that morning or the night before. In the future, it would be good not to email the person whose driveway is being dug up on a Sunday night saying, hey, I got a call that these guys can be out. I said, and that person say, okay, but it was done kind of willy-nilly. So that's it. I paid the money. What are we gonna do in situations like this with other citizens that may unknowingly have negatively impacted the water system. I don't have a clue. I don't know if they will be as understanding as I felt I was on this issue. And anyway, I was, like I said, I'm, salty about it. It was on the agenda. I didn't put it there. I'm not gonna wait another month for us to talk about this. So, there.
I've got, regardless of what Mr. Foy says about the money, I've got some serious concerns that any town resident, regardless of their statute, should be responsible for this. I think it's a marking issue. I think, the town should have had those marked originally before the house was built. We should know where our stuff is, and we should have a better map of it. And I think that, the town should incur all costs on this going forward. And I also want to make an amendment that the town reimburse Mr. Foy for his expenses on his driveway to be consistent with our future plans of handling the rest of the residences. And I know Mr. Foy is not into this discussion, but I think it's the right thing to do going forward, and I think it's the equitable thing. I don't think we should, if we find 3 more just like this, and we find a resident that does not have the ability to pay for this, and it was no fault of their own, they bought the house after it was constructed, where are we at? Are we gonna go after that resident to repave their driveway? I don't think so. And I just wanna be consistent and have a plan in place if we come across this going forward. And I think the best plan is for the town to incur the cost because it's our water system.
Full disclosure, I purchased the lot and built the house, so I did not buy a house that was already there. It may be a minor point, but I do want to differentiate that. I would feel more comfortable paying the money.
This is, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, I thought you stopped.
But, get into a situation where I'm gonna have to start recusing myself here.
This is a bad situation, could be for somebody, because this was done fairly quickly.
Fairly?
Well, pretty quick. I mean, where do we stop at what if it had been $5,000, $10,000? I thought about this back and forth quite a bit, and I think the ball was probably dropped by, there was a plat for the house, and it had to be approved by the county. Would that not be correct?
No, at the end of the day, the buck, I guess, ends with the property owner. That's the way I look at it.
Well,
I did verify the town's as-built. Sure enough, the blow-off valve is exactly where my driveway is. I would contend, due to the shape of my lot, and any of y'all that have been to my house and know that my narrow lot and know that there's a drainage easement on the other side there at the bottom of that hill, knows there's really no other way for that driveway to be there. So do you want to blame the developer for not, it doesn't matter. It's my property, I own it. I paid it, I'm pissed.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, it happens again, you just go in and
I don't know what to do if
2 or
it
3,
happens again.
I'm concerned for,
it needs to be discussed sooner or later. It don't have to be discussed tonight, but it does need to be.
No, it doesn't need to be, but it was on the agenda, and,
my concern is if it happens tomorrow to one of these residents that we consistently talk about, that can't afford the tax increases that this county's put on us, can't afford the water increases that we debate about, they surely cannot afford a $5,000 concrete bill at their expense to ensure our water system's working properly. So that is my concern, and I think we need to be consistent, and we need to own our water system. If we're gonna own it every other day of the week, then we should own it tonight.
I agree with what Jim's saying in terms of anybody else. I just felt, because I was so close to the situation, the need to pay.
Yeah, you did what you thought was right.
I did what was right.
I just don't want it to happen to anybody else in this town.
I agree with that.
And I think if Mr. Foy needs to recuse himself from the vote, I certainly would have actually encouraged that. But I think we need to make a decision on how we're gonna handle these, if there's, because there's probably gonna be others. If there's one, there's probably gonna be at least another one somewhere in this town. And we don't need to go digging somebody's driveway up without a plan on how we're gonna pay for it. So I can't remember if I made a motion, but I'll make a motion that we, incur all costs going forward. Any, any movement of any water valves, including repaving driveways, and we reimburse Mr. Foy for his expenses in arrears.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Mr. Rigsby, it might be a good idea, for just all things considered, if you would break your motion up for two votes here. Mr. Foy has indicated he'd like to recuse himself possibly, and he might like to vote on one versus another. I don't know. You'd have to ask him, but you in effect have kind of made two motions at the same time from my perspective down here on the other end. Just a suggestion.
I don't have a problem breaking it up. I'll make the First Amendment that the town incurs all costs going forward, regarding the moving or repair of any valves, including, that to personal property, driveways.
You know, we need to do something, to make sure it don't happen again. Like I said, I know they had to do a site plan for it.
Well, everything's built.
And the county approves a site plan, so,
I would contend that the county doesn't look at the, I don't know.
you don't think so? I mean, I don't
know.
Maybe this is something we need to talk about, find some information out about before we make policy. We're making policy we don't know anything about. I mean, I understand the part about, what's happened, but,
Well, the only other way, in my opinion, that we could avoid this happening again is if they come across another valve, then we're gonna have a special call meeting to make that decision on a individual basis. So, I mean, from what I understand you're asking is, before we make a blanket policy, if we come across one that's $300, but the next one's $4,000, I mean, and it could happen. We don't know what's out there at this point, apparently. I'm just saying that I don't see any reason why the town wouldn't incur that liability regardless of the amount.
yeah, the amount shouldn't even matter. I mean, it's either right or wrong or whatever.
But from a business, a
Dollar
practical
amount.
standpoint, I would think we could just simply call the contractor and ask them to give better notice if that's gonna have to happen to the citizen. I could imagine, what if they didn't get that email and they show up the next day to back out of their driveway and somebody's out there jackhammering the driveway out? I mean,
That's what happened.
yeah, so there's no doubt that should.
I got the email on a Sunday night. The email stated that the town's water system was there before my house, that I was aware of the issue, and if I had any objection to them correcting the issue, and that including digging up whatever needs to be dug up on my driveway. And I didn't have any issue. Let's get it done. But the way it was stated, it was that this was a pressing need for the next day that they would be in Stokesdale working. The response to that from the contractor was, no, we're not gonna be there the next day. We'll let you know when you'll be there. Next thing I know is I'm at work Wednesday morning, and on my Ring doorbell, the fella is, ringing the doorbell. And I said, hey man, sure, do what you need to do. I go home during lunch and my entire bottom of my driveway is dug up, and I didn't think it would be that big of a project. My understanding was that possibly a square would be cut out on my driveway. The blowout valve be relocated to the south side of my driveway and not the complete other side of the driveway behind my mailbox. So it was quite the operation. That's why they were there for 5 hours.
And I understand that, and I don't know.
I'm responding to your point.
Yeah, I don't know how
any
we.
citizen deserves better notice.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
But
I don't know.
I don't think I was treated like any citizen in this case because of my knowledge on that, and I have no problem with that. I wanted the problem fixed. I want to pay what the town has to pay. That $1,250, $250 times 5 hours or whatever. I hear your point on, any other, I don't know.
How much was the concrete poured? I mean, that's
No, that's
that's additional,
nothing to do with the,
but it's additional expense.
it is, and truth be told, my bottom of my driveway was cracked like
That's
heck
fine,
anyway.
that's fine, that's your
Well,
choice.
I've split it up into two amendments, so that if we can address the first amendment, that, that the town assume liability going forward. And again, I'm more than happy to, if we need to do it on a case-by-case basis, from a financial standpoint or from just a evaluation standpoint, but I still stand that the town needs to take that liability first.
It really, I definitely don't wanna cause anybody any hardship whatsoever. But there has to be something in place for that not to happen. An inspection process or something when these houses are put in.
I would
We just can't
contend,
say that we're gonna take liability.
Well, I'm talking about for this project that we've already contracted. I agree with you, and I think we're going in that direction with the engineering, like checking the size of the lines and stuff like that we've addressed, when builders lay a new line, they come in here and say, we're gonna run the line from here to here, but as we've all talked about, nobody has ever followed up and checked on that, so we really don't know if they laid a 2-inch line or a 4-inch line, truth be known, until we test it. My point is, and we can address that going forward too, and I don't have a problem with that, but.
and I think we've discussed also doing other valves in town, not just the blowout locations, which is part of a bigger project, and the Rural Water Association recommended it. If we start doing that, you're gonna have other issues similar to mine, in my opinion. Maybe you won't, maybe I'm just an unlucky fool that, this happened to.
Well, he's talking about exercising the valves.
Yeah, I'm
This-
focused just mainly on this
Oh,
limited
cut off.
project right now.
Surely it will. Who knows?
I'm responding to Jimmy's point about what do we do in the future. Your point was more to prevention, but this issue will happen if and it may need to. We need to exercise our valves. It's a recommendation by the Rural Water Association.
So I've already made a motion on this first section is to, assume liability and I'll limit it to this blow-off valve project. If it makes it more simpler or more clear for everybody, that, the town assumes any liability that we incur to move a valve and repair whatever property damage needs to be done in the course of that, just for this, blow-off project.
May I make a friendly amendment? That this only concerns existing construction. It does not concern any construction that takes place from this point forward.
If the house is not there, we're not gonna have a problem.
Unless somebody does what they did with yours and they pour the driveway over the valve. You gotta hold somebody accountable at some point, and I don't think the town should take any undue responsibility for what might happen in the future.
Well, I would be more willing to come up with a plan to locate those and to inspect those in the future when they go in the ground to make sure that we don't have this problem versus absolving liability blanketly.
Why don't we consult with the Rural Water Association? And, I'm sure they have a lot of experiences knowing town's policies and, situations like this that come up. What do other towns do? I don't want to rush into a situation just because of my bad experience when maybe, we learn from this because of my bad experience, but take our learnings to the experts when, when we're not. I don't know, just a thought.
And I'd like to know, if, I would definitely be that the property owner wouldn't be reliable for it if the county's supposed to inspect it. and it's supposed to be inspected.
Well, R&D,
I mean, that would be just a no-brainer, because if they miss it, they are us, we are them.
R&D is locating all of these things right now. And they are trying to do something in the way of marking them. Am I correct, Mr. Jones?
They're all marked with a blue triangle on the edge of the pavement.
All right.
I believe I believe they've all been found. If all the corrections hadn't been made, there can't be but.
Okay, so whatever we add, whether it's down 65 or Hall River Road, whichever way we choose to go with the expanded water system, we need to make sure that those valves are also marked, which would prevent this happening, hopefully prevent this happening in the future. But I think our only liability, as I understand what Mr. Rigsby's saying, our only liability should be, at this point, existing construction. There was no way for Mr. Foy to know this was gonna happen. In my mind, he's innocent in this.
Well, he's.
Well, I don't think we've accused him.
Damn right I am.
But now I'm just saying just to limit it to limit it to this project. But I certainly agree that we need to have a discussion and a policy going forward to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Let's hold this open if we may. Let's hold this open until the next meeting. We'll have a chance to talk with the rural water people to see what the existing policies may be. Does anyone object to that?
I don't, because this is a sticky situation.
Okay,
So we got a council
so
member involved.
without objection, we're gonna carry this over, Ms. Martin. We're gonna carry this over into the next meeting.
Just make a note that Derek has, you know, his concrete, he is paid for himself. You know, I don't think the town's paid for his concrete or anything like that, as, you know.
Well, then I would like to make another motion that we refund Mr. Foy's money for the moving of the water line at Craigmore.
Cragmore Court, and that is in the amount of $1,250?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Mr. Landreth,
Yes,
is there a second?
is there?
That's what we're asking you.
No, y'all don't want to second it? Yeah, of course I'm gonna second it.
All right. Any discussion?
I'd like to hear what Tim's got to say about it. I really would. And why?
Mr. Jones?
It's his agenda item.
Well, I mean, I'm weighing.
Come on, folks, it's going on 10 o'clock. Let's get this done.
Well, hey,
Mr. Mayor,
chance here.
I'd like to consult with Mr. Winfrey in the conference room for a minute, if I may, if council will agree.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that anyway. You wanna do that before you vote on this? We've got a closed session coming up. Do you wanna do that before you vote on this?
That's my request, yeah.
All right, let's do that.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Let's take let's take citizens' comments. Let anybody leave that wants to leave, and then we'll go into closed session. Any objection?
But I understand Mr. Jones wanted to confer with just me or the
Before
entire
we vote
council?
on this, we'll
Just
come
you,
back,
I'll be very brief.
Okay.
I wanna go home too.
we'll come back and vote on this, finalize this.
If just me and you go, it's not a.
I'll just withdraw the motion for now. I'll just
Okay.
withdraw the motion.
Okay, so Mr. Rigsby's withdrawn the motion. We will forward it. We will carry it on till the next meeting. Finalize it then.
Wonderful.
Citizens' comments. Any citizens? Come on, can citizens speak up? Mr. Stevenson.
I'd just like to voice my opinion and ask a couple of questions with regard to this particular topic. And this is the fact that, you know, just as Mr. Landreth indicated, that all of the homes have got site plans that are approved by the county. And my question is, I know that the water lines are included on those site plans for consideration. Are these valves also located on those? Is there any indication where the valves are in the water line specs that we give to the county to be considered when the site plans are approved? Do we know?
That's, you know,
I mean, that would have a large part to play in the decision, and, you know, we're trying to determine responsibility. I won't say liability, but we'll say responsibility, and, you know, let others determine.
Mr. Stevenson, I'll address your question very briefly. If you want to have a bigger discussion sometime about the whole wonderful world of contracting, I can speak to it, at least based on my experience. Anyway, everywhere in this state, every licensed contractor knows if they get near a right-of-way building anything, that they need to have locates done. There may be a possibility of conflicts with water mains, gas lines, phone lines, you know, fiber optic, you name it. And ultimately, it's the general contractor's responsibility. Even if he doesn't know about it, even if he can't find it, it kind of all rolls back to the general contractor in much the same way. There have been times when general contractors had to pay for light fixtures again because the electrician didn't pay for them when he bought them at the wholesale house, and he failed to get the proper lien releases signed. So oftentimes, a general contractor pays a bill twice. It's a rough world out there sometimes. But in the world of general contracting, the general, by state law, is responsible for working around the utilities, responsible for making sure they're located. That's just the way it is. Guilford County does not necessarily handle inspections on this type of scenario.
Would the proper location have indicated a valve versus just the regular water line?
Yes, there's a tracer wire that runs adjacent to these mains. We pay Yates Construction to do our locates for us. It's required by state law. They attach an electronic device to that tracer wire, and they're able to follow it and mark it. You'll see these blue flags all over town, blue marks on the ground, and that's what those are. Right now, the town of Stokesdale contracts with Yates Construction to do that. So had a locate been called for, that could have been done. But I will say this, our locate the requirement changed in my first term in office, and I don't know exactly where this construction falls, but for a while, the town of Stokesdale wasn't required to participate in the statewide 811 program, and the state law changed, and the town of Stokesdale had to become a member and participate, and we had to hire somebody to do the locates through the 811 system. But up until that point, somebody would have had to call down to the town hall and say, hey, I'm building where I think your water main may be. I need you to come locate it. And my best recollection at that time, we had another company. I'm stretching my memory here. I know we were calling somebody, and it may have been the folks that were handling our billing at the time. I'll have to think about that one. But does that answer your question?
It does. I'm just wanting to make sure, because, I'm in a subdivision that new construction is still underway, and certainly, if I see anything that might need to be drawn to anybody's attention and prevent a future problem, then certainly I'd like to make them aware of it as well, so. Yeah.
It's a little scary every time you dig. Even putting a post hole on the side, digging a post hole and putting up a mailbox, folks would be better off to have a locate done.
Yep.
You don't know what's down there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comment, I move that we go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11 for the purpose of consulting with our attorney and preserving the attorney-client privilege.
I'll second the motion.
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith? Aye. Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am aye. Forget my shoes on. Shoes on.
I responded to that when I said, it's going crappy. You gonna call me Junior out, and you don't stay.
And that seems intimidating to me, but perhaps you could tell me it might not.
You got my calculator over there.
Say that again?
You got my calculator over there? That's fine, just
Trying to,
didn't wanna lose it.
get people that saying we're not dog
You ready for this one that I just?
I mean,
I got three, how many you got?
Where it is, you know?
We don't bring them to town council.
Yeah, but I mean, that's beside the point. When we voted for him, but he's gonna make, it's just all it goes back to what he's really doing is making political.
Yeah,
That's
I
all he's doing.
wants to do that.
And Frank Bruno's climbed into it.
I actually wanted to go see the dog here at the meeting.
I'll watch.
Oh, man. Dang if you do, dang if you don't.
Yes, he was excused.
We're back in order.
All right, I'll make a motion that we reopen in open session.
I'll second it. Jim?
I think it might be worth acknowledging that Mr. Jones was excused from the meeting.
Mr. Jones has been excused from the meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that we close.
Let's have some closing comments. Anything?
No, other than, anyone out there that needs to know the truth of what goes on in town council, that you're more than welcome to watch it for themselves and, make their own determination. But the truth is the truth, and it'll always be the truth.
I'd like to wish all the mothers, specifically my beautiful wife and my mother, happy Mother's Day this coming Sunday. Also, would like to wish Jimmy and Karen a happy anniversary today.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Jimmy took her out to a fine meal tonight. Just
Yeah,
to let you know.
we did that a couple of nights ago, so I could be at this meeting. And that's my closing comment. I'd like to thank my wife for putting up with me for 36 years, and we haven't had one fight in 36 years. But if I do this many more times on anniversaries, we probably will. So, I love her, and she's the best thing ever happened to me. I probably dead or in jail if I hadn't met her, so.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yep. Lovebirds.
Thanks for being here, folks. We do appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Mr. Foy, you're not gonna clean up after yourself? You're not gonna clean up after yourself?
All right.